All right, okay. Welcome everybody to Through the Grapevine episode 4. My name is Bren. I'm going to be the host, apparently.
Is it really
for this episode?
It feels like
only
a
episode
lifetime.
4, I'm afraid. We've got a variety of guests ahead of us, very special guests in multiple ways. We've got Uber Shouts, Mr. Mitch Leslie, Harsha, of course, is always with us, and then there's that Josh Wilkinson Sideshow kid who just comes along because I feel a little bit too awkward to say, you can't come anymore.
Okay, yeah, that's how it works. I just carry the show.
Can you not throw shade at Josh in front of his dad, Bren? Come on.
Apologies. Yeah, can we see Mr. Daddy Wilkinson? Can you point at the camera in this direction? Are you not comfortable doing that?
Sat in the same room, basically.
It would just be a bit too obvious.
Right,
he just spilled a beer bottle on the floor and he's cleaning it.
We're not going to get through this episode of One Piece, gents.
I don't
never
believe
do.
it. Right. Let's hammer at home. Let's talk about contenders because we've just got off the back of playoffs. A lot of us were working it. Harsha was just loitering around the
He was working as well.
Yeah, he's doing interviews, but they don't count as work. So,
Sure. Just doing interviews for the
start.
site that literally is hosting this podcast. But don't worry,
Don't
it's
worry.
fake work.
It's fake work. Doesn't exist. No, contenders is the shout. I guess we can start at the EU side of things. We'll go about the playoff matches. We missed the last time we did this. It was like we had 2 weeks left of groups, but let's just not talk about that because that's pointless when we've had the playoffs. So the first matchup, Misfits versus C9. Can you remember that far back? Can you think that far back? It was a very close series. People didn't really think it was going to be close between them. They thought it was going to be a bit of a one-sided roll to the side of Misfits, understandably so, given the way they played during the group stages. But they shocked everyone, and that I was kind of really hoping that Cloud9 were going to show up a little bit more after, obviously, the Overwatch League news and whatnot. But Harsha, what's your take on this then?
Well, I think part of it was that Cloud9 had players that have always been strong on LAN, like Nevix and Mikey. I guess Mikey, we didn't really know about that, but you guys know him from TF2, and he was really strong at the World Cup.
Yeah.
And then I also feel like this is going to get me hated by Tvik, but I feel like Misfits as a team has a bunch of people that just failed to show up on LAN a lot. Like, I think Manitin used to be kind of shy on LAN, but he played pretty well, I would say, during the series. But Logix, he kind of just overall didn't perform the way he has been during the entire season.
I'm getting to the point where, like, if I hear that communication issues are the problem for Misfits one more time, I'm literally going to fly to Sweden and backhand Vic multiple times because it's what they say every time, and I get it. But what are you saying when you say communication is your problem? Like, you should not have you should not have struggled as much as you did against C9, especially on a map like Gibraltar, which for C9 has been horrific for the entire regular season. You lose that to them. And then, of course, we saw what happened to Misfits later on. So I don't know what's going on with them. It must be a LAN thing. They've got some players who clearly are struggling out of those conditions. There's no other way to put it.
They absolutely clutched it on Volskaya as well. When you looked at that map, it really should have gone the way of Cloud9. Like, they had an amazing setup that I wasn't able to go through on the desk because it lasted like 2 minutes. But the entire thing was like super well planned out, where they were using their ults and like baiting them back. They knew that Zupu was going to come in with the EMP, so they disengaged. It was like really excellent play coming out from whoever was calling on Cloud9. I think they changed it up recently as well. So
It's been,
they told us it was Space,
It's Space, yeah.
doing
Space
most of the
and
calling.
Mozasa, I think.
They looked really solid. They looked like they had a set plan to shut Logix down as well. It worked. I mean, his impact in the match was much less. His stats afterwards were much less than you'd expect from him. Overall, had a poor LAN. And this is where it comes to something weird for Logix as well. Is like, when it comes to playoffs, everybody focuses him because he's done so well in the regular season, and that consistently happens whenever he turns up to a LAN event, or rather, it's happened twice now. You can't really say consistency over 2 times, but it happened when they were at Takeover 2. He'd been playing so well online that people decided to shut him down, and it definitely happened here because everyone was gunning for him. So how much of it is like him LAN choking, and how much of it is the team not properly adapting and like setting up other people for success instead of Logix?
I can't even
I
tell
don't
if
feel like there's... I'm just going to completely override you, Harsha. Apologies there, pal.
You're allowed to because you're the host.
I'm the host. Aha! Privilege. But I feel like there's not been enough LANs to really tell whether that is the case or not. Everyone respects him. Every single player I spoke to at LAN says Logix is like the dominant force. And in fact, that was like the game plan. Like Cloud9 straight up said to us, the same with Giganti, they were going to shut down Logix and somebody turn off their goddamn phone. Who is that? Must be you, Josh.
Could be me.
How close is your phone to your PC?
I push the talk, so it can't be me, bitches.
Yeah, I've
very
also
typical. Very typical of Through the Grapevine.
Anyway,
Is it fixed?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not making a noise. So
Nice.
But yeah.
So I tactically traded my phone for my dog, and I don't think they make interferences happen with
Is this a fucking
electronic items.
regular season segment or something, bro? Come on. Shall we continue, boys?
Let's not do the podcast. Let's just.
No, we found our thumbnail.
Yeah, we definitely have. But no, like
Okay.
I feel like there hasn't been enough LAN events for Logics to be, I guess, have that label as somebody who chokes at LAN, so to speak.
One of the other things, though, that I found pretty weird is that Takeover is a very different environment, right? Where you are with your team and you do see the other team, but there's no crowd or no real big crowd or like no arena rather that should make you nervous. So I don't know. Yeah, there's only been 2 LANs so far that he's played in, but he definitely needs to step it up, especially when he's been that driving force behind Misfits, and especially when Tracer is probably the most important hero in this metagame, I would say.
Despite the filth that lurks outside of the player area at takeover events, it's about the most sterile environment you can have as players. You're in a fucking air-conditioned box. You know what I mean?
I think though that you can't completely dismiss takeover because there is still the pressure of like playing in a high stakes environment in terms of like what you're actually playing for, but you're also surrounded by the rest of your team, and a lot of the time like the pressure can come from your team as well as from a crowd. I feel like if you're literally there in person and you're like discussing strats, suddenly I feel like it takes it more out of the bedroom and into like you're at work or you're in like a different atmosphere. If you're genuinely like a shy person or inclined to overthink and overanalyze your own plays, I can see how that scenario would still have an effect on you.
And I haven't really had the chance to get a read on Logic's sort of personality or whether he's the kind of guy that struggles in all those conditions. I mean, Lynx, while we're staying on the same topic, Lynx was a player that we often leveled the same accusation out of struggling a little bit under those lane environments. And, Yuri is kind of a, you can kind of see that and he can be affected by those emotions, that nervousness and stuff like that. We've seen it multiple times, and he stepped up. But maybe that could be something about Logic's that I don't know. I honestly just don't know the guy very well. But there's a huge gulf between his online and LAN performances, and there's got to be something there.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at his stats, because actually when you looked at his stats of Takeover, they weren't that bad, but they weren't like at the caliber that you'd kind of expect from him on his online performances. This time he really does look like he just got shut down. And you could tell it from the game, but kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe at the end of this, will have been focused too much on how much he's been shut down, and he's actually still had a reasonable performance. It doesn't really look like it at the moment. I mean, he's got a fairly low first kill percentage and fairly low kills per 10 minutes and like a reasonable kill per all that suggests that he actually was being accurately focused and like suffering.
It's like especially jarring because he had like by far the best stats during the regular season. He was looking godlike, I would say.
Yes, yeah. And so even though he performs well in some of the games, like his Misfits Giganti stats are way worse because it was just consistent throughout the series. Cloud9, he had occasional peaks where he'd like have maps where he just exploded, and that kind of carried them through the entire series because Cloud9 could only shut him down for so long, I felt, whereas Giganti just never really found his groove.
All right, well, speaking of this matchup still, we got Nevix as well. He used to play for Misfits, and he actually moved over to Cloud9 to play, and Nevix was playing in Misfits when they didn't have the set roles, right? I mean, we had interviews with the players.
He's literally played like everything. He's played flex support, Lucio. He's played DPS. He's played Zarya. He's just played everything.
When did he play Lucio?
He played Lucio last summer.
Yeah,
he was initially a support player.
Yeah,
he
was rank 1. He was a rank 1 DPS or rank 1 and 2 DPS in the world, and he was just a support player for that team.
So he's moved over to Cloud9, and now he is in this set role as the Genji. And in my mind, at least from watching the games, from casting the games, he hasn't been performing like incredibly well, like on the level of some Genji players, but he still hasn't been having, he hasn't been shit in the bed, so to speak. He hasn't been, the downfall of Cloud9. He's actually been playing relatively well on the Genji role. And that's a big part of this. But this matchup between, him playing against his old team, how do you feel like he matched up against Tvik, which people rate as like this #1 player in the world in a lot of ways? They really do rate him quite highly.
I mean,
I would say,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, go on, Harsha. No, I'm going to let you talk first so that I can talk afterwards and like analyze what you said, and then I'll look smarter.
There we go. I mean, I've always thought that Nevix was one of those players that's always really consistent and just consistently does well and never really has those flashy moments, I would say. And I think that's kind of more of the same what we saw here, whereas I thought he was able to like be near Tvik's level, not necessarily on it because it's very hard to be on Tvik's level, but he did his job really well, and I think that's part of the reason why that Cloud9 was so close to them.
Yeah, I seem to remember him having a reasonable performance. I think Tvik overall played slightly better on the Genji, especially as they got later in the series. It seemed like he realized, okay, actually Cloud9 are giving me a ton of space here because they're committing so many resources over to Logix. I can actually do a lot more, especially on Ilios. I mean, his Pharah was dunking on kids, and then he moved over to the Genji and he was crushing nerds as well on Ilios. But before on the previous maps, he was still doing okay. They look kind of even. I personally think that Tvik's kind of, it seems dumb to say he's overrated because he really is an excellent player. But when people call him like the best in the world, that was a while back, right? That he was like the best player in the world. I don't think you can make that argument at the moment, really.
It was also something that was sort of leveled at him purely because of how flexible he was able to be, and kind of play over such a a wide range of roles. Like, yeah, this was over the time of like APAC, the first APAC, when people really started seeing his praises on Rogue, because he literally got them out of a certain defeat situation of being the only Western team to fucking beat Lunatic High, because he all of a sudden demonstrated this like depth of hero pool that we hadn't seen.
Yeah.
But now, like, we had a big period of seeing him play a middling tracer and nothing but. Now with the changes on this Misfits roster, we get to see a little bit more from him. But again, it's been ebb and flow for this guy, and people call him the best player in the world. I think it's definitely got a hell of a lot more to do with his diversity than his straight up ability on one single hero.
I personally think he's at his best when he has another like god tier DPS with him, and I mean maybe that's just like silly to say.
Most people do.
Yeah, exactly. But like my point is that every time we've seen him paired with a really good DPS, we've seen him able to fully make use of like all of the space that he has. So like for instance, we saw him with AKM, and AKM one of the best hit scan players in the world, I would say, right? And that's part of the reason that Tvik was known as one of the best players in the world at the time. And now we see him, or during the regular season at least, we saw him with Logix where he was popping off as well. So like both Logix and Tvik, like statistically at least, they look like some of the best players in Europe, and I thought they had some of the highest impacts in games as well. So I think that when you pair him with like a god tier DPS, when you give like one of the two, you have to basically choose between one of the two, right? And so it gives him a lot of room to pop off. And I thought as well during the playoffs, it was odd because Logix just didn't show up, whereas I think Tvik really did. But I don't know. Maybe that's just...
I mean, we say that, but like, yeah, the Misfits C9 game as well, Logix, actually, what I was more interested in was seeing how many deaths he suffered, especially, to use that as a metric for maybe how much is being focused or how much scrutiny is being thrown in his direction. And he actually really didn't, like, he played quite well. I mean, if you want to use the most basic of basic stats as like a KD ratio, he had like a 2.0 KD ratio. So it's not too bad from him. And it was definitely like better than any other DPSs in that particular game. So I think it's less his individual skill, but more his impact that was being nullified to a degree.
Yeah, for me, it's like when you see his first kill percentage and the amount of times that he was thrown off, and then I think he was dying first quite a lot of the times as well, and like, so he'd still be going for some of the plays, but perhaps not playing as confidently. So he'd be forced to like use his so particularly evident when they were playing against Giganti in the finals was that normally Logix is the guy making the other tracer back down in these tracer v tracer fights, and then he takes a bit more room and more position. And when you saw him, he was often having to use his recall before Davin was, and Davin looked like he was always the aggressor, despite playing more passive position. He was the aggressor in the fight, and that really opened up more space. I don't really know whether Logix was just not. Like, there's loads of things that could have gone into it. Was he not hitting his shots as well? Was he like feeling a little less confident, so he wasn't taking the right positions? Was he just
stage too
like,
cold?
Yeah, I mean, was he just getting like nervous and using his recalls too early? I don't really know what the answer is, but he wasn't having the same kind of dominant presence over the game, that's for sure.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on that matchup then? Misfits versus Cloud9. Obviously, spoiler alert, it went to Misfits' way, obviously, but. Anyone got any roundup thoughts just to finish it off?
No. I mean, no.
Standard stuff, boys. Nah, it's fine. Don't worry. We can move on to the next one. It's okay.
We've got a lot to cover.
Yeah, don't feel the need to say something just because. But the next one, the next European matchup, Gigante versus 123. This was a bit of a disappointing one for me because I was really looking forward to 123 on LAN. And then obviously Tonic, we'll probably discuss it a little bit later, but I mean, his visa got denied, which meant they had to play with Nomi. So you could tell it really hurt them quite significantly. They were not looking good at all, mainly because Tonic was their main caller. So, I mean, Mitch, Uber shouts. Give me your thoughts.
Honestly, 123 supports got fucking shit on through most of this series. It definitely felt like there was a huge disconnect, like in terms of the tank line. I don't even know if I can level that at Nomi or just a general unpreparedness for this team. But my God, like the amount of fights in which, and it's quite funny, right? Because Finzi is actually one of the biggest survivalists as far as Lucio's go during the Contenders season. Like his amount of first deaths was by far the lowest. But these guys were just getting crunched over and over again. I mean, Nomi's like a different kind of take as well to Tonic in the way he plays. Like, you know him as a big Reinhardt player, in the past. So
yeah.
He doesn't quite play the same way as Tonic does. I don't think he brings nearly that same level of aggression. And we asked him, we sat down with them, we said, have you guys practiced with Nomi like the day before? They're like, oh, no, not really. We're just going to go for it. So I honestly, I don't know if they gave up or what, like, really. Because I could already see the look on their faces like, boys, we're in trouble. We're in trouble.
From talking to them before the event started, they were all just really depressed and, like, didn't want to talk about Overwatch at all. So, like, I think that probably was a very big... I honestly think Gigante still would have won the series, and as we saw, they won the entire thing. But like, I do think that 123 could have at least put up a bigger fight. They just didn't look like they even cared.
I mean, let's preface this by setting up how big of a loss this was. This was probably their best player. This was their main caller. This was their star tank that fits the entire style together. This is making Hafikul completely useless because they lose the synergy there, which was like one of the best parts of 123. It puts the rest of the team on tilt because they don't have a caller that can fill in. They don't have a coach that can like wrap them down and make sure that they're playing the same game. They just completely lost the plot. I mean, you can tell it with the compositions that they played. They were like, I don't know exactly what the percentage was, but they were basically like 50-60% of their time just playing like this Soldier Tracer Zen Lucio strat and like playing the disciplined positioning and stuff. Like they had a real nice set style that it worked. They just threw caution to the wind in this match. I just got up the match page to have a look because I was pretty sure that Hafikul and Finzi basically played no off tanks to support Nomi. They were just like, fuck this kid. Like, he's already got an owl spot. We don't need to make him look good.
Nomi got 5 as a result.
They played like 23 minutes of Diva throughout the entire thing.
Jesus.
And then Hafi was playing like Doomfist, Genji, Junkrat, Pharah, Sombra. They played Pharah Mercy that they've never played before. They played Hafi on Junkrat. They've never played that before. They played Hafi on Sombra. Then Finzi's left, like, he pulled out the Roadhog. I mean, it was just a complete mess. It looked like they were just throwing.
Yeah. And Shaz was shitting on them as well. Like,
this
guy has been known to be like a huge player in Europe, but this was actually really filthy from him. Like his kill participation and also like his kills per 10 and first kill percentage is been really, really good. Like his stats back across the whole tournament were sick. This guy's a monster.
He really is. I think this is really unfortunate as well for 123 because they're one of the teams that could have proven themselves in the Contenders playoffs. Like if they have an insanely close game against Gigante, or like the possibility of an upset might have been there, it'd probably be like a 20 to 30% chance if they were playing at their A game, you know. But so say they just put up like an insane performance. Players that were standing out at the playoffs here, I'm fairly sure like this is going into the people looking for our players, right? Even though it's so close to the deadline, a lot of the European teams are still, or rather European players are still unsigned. Like nobody really gives it that much of a fuck about them. So if you see somebody that just like comes out of the woodwork suddenly, like say Tonic just has an unreal performance at LAN, or Snillo goes off, or like you really need a Diva player and Hafikul or Finzi look incredible. I think they could have had an opportunity there to get their names in at the last second, but instead it all fell to pieces because of this visa issue.
One of the other issues is that 123 never got to play Gigante with their actual lineup because the first time they played, I think Bok 1 was out with like vacationing in Italy or something like that, and so IPN stepped in, and this time they don't play with their most important player, honestly. So I don't know.
Yeah, the amazing history between these two teams is fantastic as well. If we'd actually had a proper matchup, because 1-2-3, the only reason that people started taking notice of them was because they beat NIP to get into Contenders Season 0. That was the team that they managed to upset in the qualifiers to actually get into the entire thing, like make it to the round of 8, and then they go on to make it to the playoffs, and they actually knocked NIP out of the tournament as well. When they went into the playoffs of Contenders Season 0, they were the ones to knock RIP out with, who do they have at that point? Davin and Youngster, I think, but they hadn't got Big Goose and Shaz in yet.
Yeah,
I don't know, something like that. And so these teams have like played against each other quite a lot as they were both forming. There's always been 1-2-3 on the top, but Giganti have just skyrocketed now that they've got their proper roster.
And something else as well that we didn't really see much of before is Lynx are playing McCree in that particular series. We've just not seen it. We thought we'd see that from 1-2-3 because we saw that Finzi played this sick McCree, just pulling it out of essentially nowhere. In the last few games of the season in order to sort of make it in. But Lynx McCree's insane. He only played, he probably played less than 10 minutes of it overall, but like his impact, it was like, for that small sample size, it was like 20 kills per 10 minutes. He had like a 27% first kill percentage, so it was pretty nutty. Like in that little piece of time anyway. Not really used to seeing him play the hero. Normally in teams he was in, there was another McCree player, or it's been a while since we've seen a Widow from him. There's more of that Genji guy, so that was also good to see.
Yeah, he looked really good on that. He actually played it against Misfits as well and looked really good on it then as well. Like real clutch headshots.
Yeah, Youngster was one of the star players to come out of Contenders for sure. This entire LAN, he showed up in multiple times. The crowd loved him as well.
Yeah,
The crowd absolutely loved him. It cracked me up when he came out for the DM show match and he was just shuffling across the floor. You could tell he was on cloud 9. He was so pleased with himself. But
he's on Giganti, mate.
Hey, that joke. We're kicking. Right, that's the final time you'll see Josh Wilkinson. Time to kick him from the call.
He's just fucked up all the cameras.
You've just ruined all of this.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
You've literally. You've ruined.
They need to be rearranged now as a result.
Nah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Oh my god, they do.
Mute your mic, Josh. Mute your mic.
Backlord.
There we go. There we go. We're good. We're good.
Oh my god.
You fucking
Wow.
idiot.
Hold that for a bit. Hold that for a bit.
Nah, you're okay. You're right. You're right. Is it fixed?
Yeah, we're good.
It's all good. It's all good.
Excellent. All right, let's move over to the NA quarterfinals. MV versus FNRG FE. No surprises with that matchup. Everyone across the board predicted Envious to be coming out on top for it, and I honestly cannot remember the scoreline for it at all. My mind's gone blank.
3-0.
3-0. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Business as usual.
Yeah, like FNRGFE didn't finish. They didn't finish Eichenwald, I think, in their map. They got held outside of the castle.
Right. So just domination.
Yeah, but I mean, this was that series we're all waiting to see. Like, how would Envious be employing as a Seagull?
Yeah.
Like, how would they be using him? Now, when we saw them in rehearsals do their practice walk-ons to the stage, we instantly noticed that Mickey wasn't sitting down with the team. So we knew pretty much straight away, because Seagull had to set his hard drive up and everything. So we knew he'd be in for the first game. We knew obviously that'd be Oasis. And what struck us the most watching it was just the fact that Envious were actually playing this triple DPS setup, Effect, Seagull, and Time.
Yeah.
And FNRGFE, their mental bandwidth in trying to deal with all these threats was so overtaxed. There was nothing they could do. Effect was ripping them apart from behind, and Seagull's just completely uncontested in the sky. Credit to Buds for challenging him out, but even if Buds beats Seagull, the rest of Envy's DPS just wrecks FNRGFE. It's like they had no response.
It's like a classic case of way too much talent on one team, because if you focus down one threat, there's still two more that can just wreck you. And we can't forget that all of these players are considered at least some of the best in the West, if not the world, at their role. So I don't know. This is just an insane team. I don't think FNRG had any real chance of doing much this series.
Yeah, I actually don't think though that composition would work against a team that had a good plan against it.
I fully think that Envy was partially trolling throughout this entire.
What was it? Was it Tracer, Farah? Was it Junkrat at the time who was playing
Junkrat,
mostly?
Junkrat.
I think he moved to McCree at one point
as well. Yeah,
because they had no diva, right, and they don't have any ability to take a peel away from them, but they're playing against FNRGFE, who they know don't play like high tempo Genji Tracer comps very often anyway. And so Buds is like forced to go Soldier and try and like spam down Seagull in the air. And so while the two of them are just like dicking around with each other, they just wipe them with way too much damage. But if they'd gone in like high tempo aggressive, if they'd been playing against like FaZe or somebody and tried to pull out that composition,
mate,
I don't think it would have worked that well.
They busted out like fucking, what was it, Junkrat Bastion.
Yeah, that is also true. But I mean, specifically on control, like if you run out of control, because the maps are so small, you've got no peel or no way to disengage, so you can't just run away if they dive you. So
I mean, against FaZe, Timon played 7 different heroes.
Yeah, they were just messing with their food the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy. All right, next NA matchup. Unless anybody's got any final thoughts on how good Envious is and wants to
also Effect. Like we were talking about Logix, right, and the fact that he didn't quite show up. Effect showed up plus some, and then also showed up on like Zarya and well, what the hell else was he playing? I can't even remember. But he was just like wrecking kids on every single thing he played.
Yeah, he actually if he didn't play any Zarya in that first series, he played like 55 minutes of Tracer for the whole series, and then like a little bit of Reaper.
It must have been against FaZe then.
I mean, we'll bring it up later, but he was like super clutch too. Like it wasn't just that he showed up, but he was like clutching.
That Temple of Maneuvers, that Temple of Maneuvers clutch was disgusting.
Oh god. Jeez. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just screaming in ecstasy over Effect because you just reminded me of the play. But we'll talk about FaZe Clan versus Envision, because this is a matchup that, in a previous one throughout the groups, Envision actually got absolutely dumpstered by FaZe, like shut down straight up. The DPS of FaZe, Shadowburn and Carpe ended up having ridiculous like kills to death ratios against Envision, and they got torn to pieces. And then here they are playing again in this playoffs. Envision get a much closer game out of them, but again, still FaZe take them the upper hand, so to speak.
Oh, wait a second, though. This wasn't too much of a closer game.
This was not.
They won a map, but that was when they were using their like
on paper, Mercy it's a closer game. If they win a map, if they get one more point, I can say it was a closer game.
Let's just contextualize that, though. First of all, like what was really good in this series was Saini's Pharah. It was fucking really good. It was literally the only thing that I could really point to Envision and go, I was really impressed by this. This was really, good part of what they brought to the game. The rest of the series was fucking donkey doo-doo, to be honest. But Sadie was like by far better than Shadowburn in that 2v2. In Ilios. Shadowburn was being pressured really hard. Sadie's been playing Pharah for ages as well. Obviously, you guys know I'm back in tier 2. But Hollywood, Envision get the first checkpoint. They don't get to the Gold Studios. While Sky, they get pretty close on that one. To be fair, they do get like, I think like 93% on the second point, but then Route 66 they didn't even get the first checkpoint.
They didn't even get like halfway to the first checkpoint.
I'm sorry, but like this is a prime bed shitting if you're asking me.
This happens with teams. Like we spoke to Envision again with like interviews and whatnot before the season was starting, and they said they're an emotional team. They're based around McGravy, right? His hype, how he's feeling. Everyone else feeds off his energy, and if he's not feeling it in the game, if he starts playing badly or whatever, or not as well as he's used to, the team as a result will start to play a little bit worse around it. And you see this with teams that are emotional, right? They might win the first map, but as soon as stuff starts to go, a little bit off to the side a little bit, they start to just snowball out of control beyond that and struggle to come back off the back of it.
One of the other things is I don't know how much practice they've had together, because we do know Numlocked has 1 foot out the door, right? Because Shane's going to be stepping in for APAC. I think that was what it is. So I don't know how much they've been able to prepare together for this tournament. And I mean, I still to be honest, I thought that FaZe is just a more talented roster overall. And I mean, I don't really know what to say. It just wasn't that close of a series.
Don't forget as well that like Envision made a change in the team comp that we were all really kind of confused by, right? We actually saw McGravy not playing Tracer really much at all. There was a short stint on it. He didn't play that well. And Jari was actually playing most of the Tracer. We saw McGravy play actually quite a bit of Diva, obviously, in the composition with the Pharah, which I thought his Diva was fine. But then we saw him play a bunch of Soldier 76. And this was completely the opposite of what Envision tried to do in that game against FNRGFE. We actually saw Jaru playing the Soldier 76, McGravy trying to play Junkrat and stuff. And I asked him at one point, where we had a chance to chat to him, And Gravy's like, I just didn't think I could do anything up against Carpe. I just didn't think I'd have a chance in that matchup.
I think Tracer's very much a confidence character as well. So like if he doesn't have the confidence in it, you don't want to be playing it because you're going to be trying to dart in and out of like a bunch of skill shots. It just doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that takes some of the sting out of the whole McGravy being passionate, etc. Because he starts out on Diva, they're like the team's probably going to be like hyped up after winning that first map, but then he's just kind of playing soldier for the rest of the game, and they start out and they just get held on Hollywood. Like I don't think this was a mental collapse. I just think they were never going to do it. They're just not as good a team. They're just going to get trashed.
Fair enough. Okay, that concludes the quarterfinals.
And actually, they're off in APAC now, and I've seen people posting on over.gg like saying they're going to 2-0 Flash Wolves and stuff like this.
Oh
No.
You've got another think coming. You've got another think coming. I would be very surprised if,
Especially with them.
They're going to lose to blank, boys. I'm calling it.
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, blank were a decent team.
Were.
Have you watched an OPC, bro? They've improved over the course of this season. They actually had some decent games. They had a decent back and forth with Ardeon, but that's another story to talk about later. I think they're doing. Yeah, but let's be honest, bro. Like envisioning going out there with like a player swap, it's going to be a real big ask for them to have the impact they want. And also, like, honestly, I was in China last year with the guys, and sometimes it's hard to get good practice there, despite the facilities kind of existing. There was a lot of fucking about to try and get everyone in a position where they could scrim regularly and all that sort of stuff. So not everything, it's not all that meets the eye, I guess, when it comes to trying to get yourself set up in China. It's tricky.
I guess it is good in the sense that they're going to be like at the top of the tier 2 scene, and getting more LAN exposure and more international exposure should just help overall, though. Even if they don't do that well, they'll get like the experience.
Yeah, and then they'll build fan bases, and they can come back in Contenders Season 2 and have fans there and stuff like that. So it's all good. And then they can get trashed there, and then they can get relegated down to Open Division, stuff like that. It's all good for the scene.
Good for the scene.
Okay, let's go on to the grand finals of EU. Misfits versus Giganti. It was a fantastic series, straight up. Okay, it was probably the best series I could have hoped for, casting wise.
Do you know the only reason why it was good? Because they played Eichenwald twice.
Yeah, is it foul?
It's the only reason.
Yeah,
Hey,
you're right. If
Shall we get this out of the way first? Like, I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that none of us really agree with the decision to allow maps to be replayed.
Well, I don't think they agree with the decision.
Do you know what happened?
It was an error, right?
I spoke to Misfits after, and I was like, what the hell is that? How'd you even know? How did Mineral spot this out? And they're like, oh no, Mineral didn't spot this. Blizzard just asked what maps we wanted to pick, and listed Eichenwald. We're like, can we pick it? And they said yes, so they picked it. So if Blizzard had never told them that Eichenwald was an option, they definitely wouldn't have played it, and it wouldn't have.
I would wonder, and I'd wonder how completely that particular issue was discussed, because I don't think I've ever fucking seen that. Ever. So that's, look, for me, it's a slight smudge on the match that could have been, but in all fairness, it wasn't the only map that we saw played twice. Temple of Anubis was also played twice. And we actually had,
it was Gigante's map, so I mean.
And we had the Misfits that actually won it the second time around.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Okay.
Boy, I love Double Anubis in a series.
What was that? What were you doing with your face?
Just telling you how much I love Double Anubis.
20 days away. Don't start doing that.
We should actually. We should. Mate, what are you talking about? You look like a horror character all the time.
Whoa, are you sure, pal?
You do look like Skeletor goes back to school, to be fair.
Yeah.
What did you say? Skeletor goes back to school? Because then don't let him anywhere near schools. I can tell you that.
What is this shit? I can't answer back to this. Let's just talk about Overwatch some more. Let's talk about that. Right, yeah, but I remember in the casting room and like in our ears, production were like, oh yeah, next map is Eichenwald, and ZP was just like, what? Just like losing his shit, just like. It's like ZB. Calm down, ZB. But I was also like, what the fuck is going on? And he was like talking to them like, surely this is a mistake. They can't play the same map twice. And he's like, nope, It's the first time we're doing it. And I was like, okay, all right. And then
at the end of the day, though, this would be like an outrage if they thought that it was the right thing to do or whatever.
Yeah,
but the fact that the fact that it was a loophole and they've now closed it and they actually know like the origin and it will never happen again. I feel like it's almost a non-issue, you know, 'cause it didn't even ruin the series.
And it wasn't a problem that was forced onto players by Blizzard. It was actually the players were able to players were able to make the decision there. So Reddit can't be like, fuck you, Misfits, you played it back twice in a row. Like, we must even say that Blizzard. Yeah. But Misfits like, oh, that's fine, guys. Yeah, I get it. That's great. We like diversity. 2 maps.
Tell you what,
the same in the series.
Tell you what, when Giganti were 3-1 up, and I thought that they were going to lose it because they went back to 3-3. I was about to lose my mind and be like so sympathetic towards them because I thought they were just going to have a nightmare. I thought they'd been tilted into oblivion.
I felt so bad because I knew what everybody was going to be saying to them as well.
Yeah. Anyway.
Right, let's
talk about the series itself?
Talk about the series. Yeah, let's dive into it other than the maps. So again, we talked about Logic's quite a lot previously. Okay, teams, they shut them down. Was that the same case here in this series than Harsha? Was Logic once again, did he just not have that performance that we were expecting from his online work?
Yeah, I think overall Tvik was the player that showed up most in this series, whereas during the regular season it was Logic's doing most of the work and paving the way for him. So he definitely didn't have the same impact, and it didn't help that Tvik's counterpart Youngster was like they were trading duels like most of the game. So like when you already have your star getting shut down and your other star's not showing up, what does Misfits have to do?
I don't know. Why don't you tell us, Mitch?
I'd like to tell you, but I drank a bit too much lemonade the night before. I was feeling a little bit funny in the morning, so I actually arrived at the venue probably about second, third map. I would have liked to have watched it, but sometimes things just don't happen that way.
Some good lemonade.
It was nice. Yeah, it's good. Thanks for asking.
Josh.
So what I'm doing is, because I definitely think that Logic's did underperform, but what I'm doing is I'm just hopped on Winston's lab. I'm just taking a look at what his actual performance was over the season compared to what he put up in those games, so that I can give you a little bit of statistical thingy to go along with my analysis. And he actually has some of the okay. So he straight up has the lowest kills per 10 minutes he's ever played in Contenders, by a considerable margin. The next lowest is that Cloud9 game in the semi-finals where he put up nearly 11 kills per 10 minutes. He's never had less than 10 before. The next lowest is like 12. So he went from 12 to 11 to under 8 kills per 10 minutes in that game against Giganti. And his deaths, I mean, stayed consistent at like 5. So it's not like he was dying more. He just wasn't getting the opportunities. He was just like not playing as confident, maybe. Not getting the picks that he wanted, not hitting his shots. I don't know. I bet that first kills are similar. If I have a look at that, let's see. Oh, God.
So does that tell a story of... Because again, we go back to this question of Logic's playing on LAN. If he's not dying as much either, it means that it's not exactly Giganti shutting him down as much, or is it the playstyle of...
Well, no, you actually can shut down a Tracer and still not have her die, because she like recalls or blinks away and stuff like that.
One of the things that I think is really notable about Gigantes is that they have very distinct tank play, where they... Essentially, it's like Fraggy playing super far forward and Zap is covering his tracks, whereas every other tank duo in Europe doesn't really play the same way. And so from talking to players, they all think that you have to play the matchup a different way against Giganti. And I know that people are talking about how Logix has a tendency to go for the backline, but what I've been told is that players think that the right way to play against Giganti is rather to go after Fraggy, because he puts himself in like a weird position, right? So I think that they just weren't able to deal with the tanks when... like during this entire series.
Yeah, so in fact, I brought up the first kill, and that is just as evident, man. First kill percentages all throughout the season have been like anywhere from... So his lowest was 13% against 1-2-3, another top team in the regular season, right? That was a really close game. Got 13% of first picks. It went all the way up to 30%, like 26% against first Cloud9, 30% against Bazooka Puppies when he's just styling the nerds, right? 10. Yeah, it dropped to 9% against Cloud9, then 10%, or not even 10, like 9.68 against Giganti. So he wasn't even getting the picks early on. He's like not getting the picks, and he's not getting kills throughout the series. So whatever they were doing to shut down Logix, which I guess I'd have to rewatch it. Yeah. It's subtle stuff, like a Discord orb here, a couple of bits of damage there from the Lucio or whatever. Having more of an idea of where he is, but all of the stuff added together really worked to shut down their best player.
I really wonder if Shaz had an impact on that at all, because from watching him, like every time they jumped onto his POV, he was just headshotting people like left and right. I wonder.
Yeah, he had some nuts headshots.
I wonder if he was just getting chip damage on Logic's anytime he tried to engage. If that was part of the like, you could force out recalls that way with the Zenyatta fairly easily if your aim's on point.
Yeah, and so I think it comes back to this discussion of like how much, like if you've got somebody who's prepped that hard against a single tracer, who's been the carry of your team throughout the season, you have to adjust your playstyle coming into the end of it, because they're gonna focus Logics. So the rest of your team then presumably has to step up and stop like putting all your eggs in the Logics basket, right? Because he can't be expected to go wild with the same performance if everybody's looking at him all the time. Or the alternative is that they were trying to do that and Logic's just shit the bed because he was nervous at LAN or whatever. It's difficult to tell, right?
Yeah.
It is nerve-wracking though, right? Because I mean, Logic's, he played at Takeover 2 and we talked about that. That's like you're in a box basically. There's no roar of the crowd, but
no
out
oxygen.
there in the Blizzard Arena, you've got 450 people staring back at you. You know, the casters are screaming your name and whatever, and you are in the spotlight and you are the star player for Misfits. There's a lot of pressure.
I don't have a problem with giving Logic's the benefit of the doubt and the grace period here in this roster. I don't feel bad about doing that, but I just think it is pertinent to obviously draw a contrast between his online and LAN performances, as we have been doing. I don't necessarily feel remiss about doing so, because we can see how much of an essential component of Misfits' success Logic's has been in the past. So when they lack that, then like you'd have to point the finger and go, yeah, I mean, this is something that is worth identifying.
Yeah, because the big issue is that he was I would say he was the best player in all of Europe during that regular season. All of a sudden, he's just not showing up when they need him. So, I mean, you kind of do have to point the finger, even if it feels kind of bad.
Yeah, and I mean, when Mitch is talking about the grace period there as well, I don't think they should make any changes to this roster. I don't think anyone's calling for changes to this roster. Like it's obviously got the pieces it needs to be able to win. So all they need to do now is kind of fix the playoff issue that they had there, whether that be, you know, LAN nerves, communication, or having a different plan once one of their players gets focused. They just have to come up with that. And I think playing in the Overwatch League, presumably they use the same roster or a somewhat similar roster. I don't know why they'd make major changes.
Just pick up subs, probably.
Yeah, so presumably they use the same roster. They get a lot of LAN experience. You know, it's every game is at LAN, so it's not like you have the high pressure playoffs at the same time as playing on LAN. So you can kind of separate the two. Maybe they get a bit more experience that way.
All right. Well, let's move the discussion over to the Giganti side of things once again. Linkser, we briefly mentioned his name and how much he turned up. You know, did his little shuffle onto the stage, but he was one of the star players in my mind. One of the players to come out of Contenders as, you know, easily you're going to be saying, this guy, if he doesn't find an Overwatch League spot in Season 1, then I'm going to start hitting some heads together, because he played out of his mind in multiple times. Like the final map as well in that series between them on Ilya was unbelievable. He clutched it out.
Oh, he shut down Tavik really hard on that last map.
Whew. That was super spicy. The guy played really well, but I actually thought that he played better during the regular season than he did at LAN. Really? But yeah, I mean, I think he played really well at LAN, but also all of the attention was on him. Like all the storylines were built around him, so like everyone was looking for it. But during the regular season, he was performing just as well, if not better. I think he's just, the consistency has been amazing, because prior to that we didn't really see it.
I think the issue is that mostly, I mean, we feel like he was really strong at LAN, but I think part of it's because Giganti went into this matchup as underdogs, rather, and he was playing against two of the best DPS players in Europe, and you know, outshining them arguably during the. I wouldn't even say arguably. I think he was one of the best players in that series. So I think that people just didn't expect that, even though he's been so statistically good and just a good player for Giganti overall during the regular season.
Yeah, I think he is an excellent talent. And if he can keep up this level of consistency, he's genuinely, just obviously one of the best European DPS players that somebody has to pick up for an L team.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he showed 7 picks throughout the series itself, and the ones that he was obviously spending the more time on. I actually thought his Soldier 76 had quite a distinct impact, even if it wasn't sort of his main pick that we saw. He also, I'm pretty sure he busted out May at one point on a stall. And,
yeah, he did. Yeah,
had a lot of success in a very short period of time, but like,
yeah,
he would all of a sudden start popping
nuts.
up with this random pick. I'm like, what the? Yeah, he was playing well.
One of the specific heroes that I found like really, really impressive out of him, and this is going back to the regular season, is that his Genji's always been at the top of, I would say, Europe. And when you can really see this when you watch him playing on Oasis on, I think it's Gardens, the map with whatever it's called, basically the map where you pick Pharah pretty much always, where he's always taking the Pharah and the Mercy out of the air, and it's like really clean. Like I don't see any other players doing it as well as he does.
Yeah, it's actually quite crazy what he's able to do against Pharah Mercies, because normally Genji is not the counter to Pharah Mercy.
Exactly.
Whenever people go for these like big flashy Dragon Blades onto the Pharah Mercy, they end up just like, the Pharah just uses their shift, and Genji's like...
And you know, from speaking to him after, what he was telling me is that he's able to gauge how much fuel that the Pharah has, judging by how far she is off the ground, and he's thinking about all these little things when he's playing against them. So the guy's just insane against them in that matchup.
Yeah, I remember back at the World Cup watching Russia play. I think it was against Canada maybe, or something similar. Yeah, and like Shadowburn is not playing Pharah in this series. He's not trying to match up against Mangachu, and yet he's single-mindedly chasing this Pharah around Ilios and just not getting it, just completely missing it, like pulling up short on dashes, like getting one shuriken in. Obviously, it's a nightmare to try and indirectly deal with a Pharah as another projectile player, especially a Genji, but. Youngster is one of those players that actually really knows how to manage that very well, which is quite fun to watch, because if he just pulls his Dragon Blade out, there's a good chance he's going to go straight in and actually get a kill 30, 40 feet off the ground in terms of the map. So it's always fun to watch.
What I actually loved the most was that there was a big difference between the two Giganti DPS players in that final, because Youngster looked like he was really trying to step up and be like the big carry player when they were going aggressive. It was like getting tons of first picks. He was also dying quite a lot. He was trying to go for big Dragon Blades. He actually failed a lot of his Dragon Blades at LAN, where he was doing really well in regular season, I think. But the difference between them, because Davin, it felt like when I was watching the game, Davin was just like a super consistent, really good presence. And then you look at the stats afterwards, and this guy had he had the game of his life. It was honestly ridiculous. He died 30 times over 7 maps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
he's
like 80 and 30, I think, in kill death. And what's even more important than that, his first death percentage, 1% out of fights. Whereas, take the example of Youngster.
Youngster was 25% on game. So you see the difference between the two of them, right? And it was just beautiful to watch, really, because Davin, like Mikey, both the traces that Logic's played at LAN, likes to play tighter to the unit. He's going to fend you off a little bit, be a bit more of the peeling tracer, always stay alive. And when we were talking to the guys beforehand, and they were like, we always try and stay alive, we never die, really try never to die. And they were quoting this stat, the team that gets the first pick wins 80% of the time. And then you see Davin absolutely embody that philosophy to the core, have less than 4 deaths every 10 minutes and still get 80 kills. I mean, the guy had a monstrous performance.
So this is just an interesting thing from talking to Mozaso, who's one of his ex-Cyclones teammates, where he told me that Davin personally doesn't think he's that talented of a player. So because of that, he just works really, really hard and tries to make up for it, because I guess he knows that people like Logic's, I guess, who else would you, maybe Snillo, they have that pure aim on Tracer, but this guy apparently just plays 15, 16 hours of Overwatch every day just practicing his aim. And when he's tired of Overwatch, just plays CS practicing his aim. So apparently I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, just crazy work ethic.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so what do we think then about this? Because Giganti, coming into this, are not going to be getting into Overwatch League as a team, as a whole unit, right? They're coming out of it as individual players. But do you not feel like the magic of Giganti is in the fact that they've played so well? This team has come together as 6 players, and they are having these outstanding performances.
Well, one of the things about this team is that I feel like part of that magic is because you just remember the old NIP lineup, where it's just those 6 players that have played together forever, and the people that were the face of that lineup were Fraggy and Zappis, right? But when you look at this Giganti lineup, it's actually only 2 of those players that remain from NIP. And then you have Youngster, everybody's always loved him because he's been that star DPS player, but maybe not on the top European roster. And then I guess Davin kind of came out of nowhere. Shaz was on like Hammers Esports. Nobody really cared about that team, to be honest. And then Goose was on what, like Alpha Squad? So this is only a lineup that's really existed for 2 months. And like while it's disappointing, they did accomplish their goal by being the best team in Finland, and then they won, you know, the last European Championship before Overwatch League.
There's a good deal of romanticism about this roster anyway, because of like where they were and the fact that they, especially failing to take that DreamHack title, which is what everyone sort of expected from them. And then like I feel like it was a really well documented period of struggle for them when Triple Tank started to fade away and they were playing Triple DPS. And if you talk to him as well, like Zappos will tell you that it was actually quite painful to have to start to trim this roster back and try and, you know, make it work, especially with Mafu's departure, who, like, Mafu as well is a super passionate, super emotional guy. And, like, I know Zappos was saying, like, removing him from the roster was really hard. We really wanted to make it work with these 6 players. So I think there's a lot of people appreciate the fact that they've had to make big sacrifices to try and stay relevant and rise to the top again. And that they've done it with this roster now with Youngster as well, who was, to be honest, languishing in that Dignitas roster and really not sure what to do. And honestly, he sat party and witnessed a lot of the decisions in that roster that really took it in the wrong direction. But he stayed true to his team. He never really sold them out, and now he gets to be part of this as well. I think a lot of people see that and kind of feel the great sense of catharsis seeing them win a tournament like this.
Yeah, I think also you've got to give credit to Zappos and Fraggy's intelligence of being able to build a roster and create a system for their players, because he's been able to do, or rather, they've both been able to do it for so long. With like, they've done it with that previous roster, but then when they retooled, they completely changed their style, and yet they knew which players to grab, and they knew how to play this new system, and they knew how to make it all work and fit within each other. I think, honestly, that you've got a really good point there, Bren, because I think the magic of this team is in how they've played together and how they've made this system work. I think if you pull either Big Goose or Shaz or Davin or certainly Fraggy and Zappos into other Overwatch League teams, they're not going to perform at that same level. And probably Youngster as well, because that team sets him up so much to do like the big
especially Davin sets him up.
Yeah. So I think they've just got like a really nice system that works super well for them, and the intelligence and the trust between each other to make it work. I think it's quite likely that. So for some players, if you take them out of their Contenders roster and plug them into an OWL team, you expect like bigger performances because some of their teams holding them back or they've got like big potential. I think these players you're going to see probably dips in performance unless they're able to maintain the same. Like a guy like Davin or Youngster might be able to maintain the same like really good performances, but it seems unlikely to me. I think they're going to get slightly worse. I think it's a real shame that we won't see this roster in OWL.
Well, one of the guys that's definitely not going to perform the same is, I would say, Fraggy, because Fraggy has this entire style dedicated to him where your team has to play a different way because of how aggressive he is, because he doesn't like play back as a Reinhardt protecting people, but he'd like rather swing his hammer. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see like how he ends up during, I don't know, Contender Season 2 or Overwatch League or whatever he's going to be doing, because this is like a lineup that was built around him and not the other way around, I would say.
Yeah, the other guys like Zappos as well had the most unreal clutch moments on Zarya throughout this final.
Oh my god,
when he was just like bubbling rip tires all over the place.
There's a moment
where otherwise that's like a 3K.
No, what I was going to say, sorry for interrupting, but there was a moment against Misfits where he just literally walks right past Manitin, who's trying to hold up a DM, and just gravitons their entire team. Like, he was just doing
he did that like 10 times.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know how he was able to launch so many grabs and not have any of them eaten.
Yeah.
Because he was just throwing them at Manitin. Like, here, catch this.
Long range. The balls are
Manitin's like, I can't hold all these graviton switches. Spills them all over the floor.
No, yeah, but I mean, that pretty much, I think, concisely summarizes it up. This is a team that I feel like if you do pick them apart, you're going to start to lose that magic of what made them so good. And again, maybe I'm a bit nostalgic as to when they were, this finished lineup way back when, and they've kept sort of the same players roughly. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame that we're not going to be seeing them as a unit in all Season 1 at least. But I think it's safe to move on now to the next finals, lads. Anybody, any final words on the EU Grand Finals? No,
Nay.
Standard stuff. Excellent. We can move on. God, how long have we been recording now? Not too long, I don't think.
57 minutes exactly.
The clue is never to look at the timer and just keep on plugging.
All right, Envy versus FaZe. This was a matchup that I was hoping FaZe would have a bit of a stronger performance, but we highlighted it earlier, and we mentioned it. Envy were kind of playing with their food throughout this playoffs, and that's the same story in this grand finals. Is very telling.
To be fair to FaZe, they did actually come very close on both Anubis and on Route 66, but on Route 66, that was just the most atrocious defense during the second attack, where they literally gave up like 4 fights in a row for Envy just to get to like the end of the map.
Yeah, I mean, there's context there. Like, what happened was that by the time Fact Fiction realized there was a Bastion on Envious, he was dead.
He died. Yeah.
He peeked the top corner of the hairpin, just peeking over the top. Right, and he just leaps away as soon as he sees this, and somehow Taimu manages to get the last shot on him to pick him up, or whoever it was. And from that point on, FaZe were just like, we are not ready for this at all. We are not ready. And Envy jumps on top of that as well. That was like pure and simple snowball. And then obviously for the entire rest of the map, almost, I guess, until like halfway through second phase, Envious had mad ult advantage. They churned through it really well, and that's the kind of map as well you can get snowballed out really fucking hard on the second point especially. So it was atrocious, but again, they were not ready for that, and Envious didn't give them a chance to recuperate.
But it was exceptionally silly because NV8 fell into overtime on second point, and then had to finish the entire third point during overtime during their first attack, right? So like, FaZe had so many chances to close this out, but every single one of them, either they got unlucky or they just didn't close it out.
What was the envious strat for holding Route 66 first that they said won every time? I can't even remember what it was.
I think they just played their normal comp. They just said
no, it wasn't. It was like Roadhog, Sombra.
Oh, maybe
Seagull on Diva. No, was it? It was something weird. It was like some real strange thing.
No, yeah, they had like on defense the first time around. It was like Chips Mercy, Seagull was Junkrat, Taimu was Roadhog, and Coco was Reinhardt, and Harry was playing the 76. Super fucking weird. Like, it was a single support Mercy with like double tank, and then you had Tracer Junkrat 76.
What I was told by Seagull is that he had 2 hours of Diva the entire time he was in Contenders. Like, he barely...
Yeah, because he was brought in just to play the Junkrat in that comp, right?
Yeah, the Junkrat and the Pharah.
The Diva for the attack.
Yeah.
Because they had to get past point A.
Right.
Because
they never lost point A, he only got 2 hours of Diva playtime? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that he, throughout the entire week he was there, he played Diva for a grand total of 2 hours, but he was busting it out in the finals.
Yeah. They only bust out in the finals because they lost point A on Route 66, and they didn't expect to. But that to me is madness, because I suppose actually that it is on Route 66, and it was one of the new maps, and they didn't have that much time to practice. But even so, if you've been full holding everybody on point A, one of the scrims you just go, "Hey guys, let's go point A," and then we can practice the rest of the map.
No one's going to keep you for throwing your scrims, boys. The fuck's wrong with you?
I don't know if I agree with that one, because then you're defending against the team where they've got like I feel like you want to take the scrims as seriously as possible, like they are actual games. Otherwise, you're running into situations where you're trying to defend against teams, and the ult situation is a bit messed up.
But I think it is.
The ults can be anywhere in any match. Like, you could have held them just after they used them all. Could have held them after they got a big snowball built up. You can set up any situation you like in Overwatch.
And there's no reason not to, like, if you're at a disadvantage, it's still fine, because you're practicing a situation that might show up in game. Like, putting yourself at a disadvantage in scrims, I don't think is that big of an issue. I think you want to try and be able to play out of any situation possible, right?
Yeah. Kind of. I say yeah, but I'm not sold. I
say yeah, but I think nah. Hashtag Bren 2017.
Well, we know the philosophy that Bren's going to be bringing on to C9 Kongdu when he manages them now.
Yes. Guys, just don't throw at all. Just win. That's my strat.
It didn't work for them in Apex.
Well, it hasn't gone so well so far, yeah.
That's because I'm not there.
With Bren's management, they would have crushed GC Busan and sent them on the train back south. Get out of here.
Every team that comes up against the Team London, they're just going to be gone. They're going to be out of it. Don't worry. Just don't worry about it, boys. General manager.
Your trash talk is so nondescript as well. It's like they're going to be
so vague.
It's not going to be a contest.
Vague. Don't worry, boys. They're going to be gone. Oh, roasted. Holy shit. I'm going to be gone. Oh. I'm losing my mind.
Don't make me kick you from the Skype call again. Going close to it.
Jesus Christ.
Going close to it. But I believe that summarizes up the finals. Anybody want to say something about the MV FaZe matchup in the finals again?
I don't think we actually talked about the fact that Seagull was on the team, did we?
Because that was. I think we brought it up in the first match.
Mentioned it in the first playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, because that's something that happened since our last podcast.
You know what? Some of the players that were scrimming against Envious actually told me that they thought the lineup with Seagull had been stronger and that they were getting stomped whenever Seagull came in to play for Mickey. So just an interesting thing to know because he's only been there for less than a week or about a week.
Yeah, I mean in this series he plays Deeper Junkrat and Farah,
yeah.
like all about even proportions. And in all honesty, like his Farah wasn't as frightening as it sort of was back in that first map, in that first series. Sorry, I think it was still good. He still had his impact, but I would say like it was actually Effect doing again a lot of that heavy lifting throughout this series.
And if you actually had this, go ahead.
I think Seagull, who was brought in for his Junkrat, may have had the worst Junkrat in Contenders playoffs.
Really?
Not because it was too bad, but because everybody else that... No, I don't even mean that. I mean, I haven't even looked at the stats, but when we were watching, Monty brought it up, and I was like, I thought for a moment, and I was like, I actually agree with you. Because everybody else that played Junkrat in the playoffs, like, was like popping off on it and was like using that hero insanely. Seagull was just kind of sat back spamming with it, and like everyone else was playing way more aggressively with it and like getting the first picks and like rolling fights forwards. He was playing it very supportive. It looks very strange.
If you look at the stats, it actually lines up exactly with what Envy says, like how they play, right? Where you have Effect topping off all of the players. He's just going off like plus 20, 30, even more in both series. And you see Taimu and Seagull at the bottom of the stats with like very low plus or minus kill death ratios. And it's because they've been so supportive so supportive in that they're playing around Effect, making him the carry. And then, you know, you see Taimu and Seagull like on Junkrat, Farah, I think, and like Roadhog, I think they're just taking attention, trying to make sure that Effect can do his job.
Yeah, but how much room are you making for Effect when you're playing a fucking Farah and a Junkrat? Shitloads.
Yeah, exactly.
Shitloads of room. And all the teams we spoke to literally said, yeah, if we can deal with Effect, we can beat these guys. Like there's a real reason for that. Because not only is Taimu obviously a facilitator in that regard, but Seagull has spoke about wanting to, you know, consciously be a facilitator in this particular roster.
Yeah, he knows his place. in a nice way, not trying to say anything about him.
He knows his place.
Yeah, but he's not fucking about. He's not walking into this team and whacking out and just saying, "Watch out, boys! I'm just going to come and you know shit on some nerves." That's never been what he said. You know, he wants to facilitate the team. So I mean, it's nice to see as well. I just want to make sure that like you know people that watch don't go, "Oh, Seagull's fucking overrated."
Yeah, exactly.
As a result, because his role in this team is so integral, especially if you watch these King of the Hill maps, boys. Like his impact can't be denied. There's no doubt about it.
I can definitely see these guys turning up with the OWL team, at least being one of the top teams in season 1 for sure.
You know what? It's so unlucky for FaZe actually, because every time they face Envious, they're like at their peak and they just get wrecked, like a mega dumpster wrecked. When they played at MLG Vegas, I brought it up on the desk and Puckett was like, that was a long time ago, Sideshow, don't worry about that. I was like, yeah, this is going to happen again, don't worry. It was like a clean 4-0.
This time, FaZe got points. Last time, FaZe didn't even get a single point during this. I don't think any series in Overwatch will ever be as one-sided as Envy versus FaZe at MLG Vegas.
Yeah, that was really crazy, actually. And then Envious have never won a grand final where they dropped a map.
No.
They're always 4-0'd.
AF Blue was 4-1.
No, it was 4-0.
Are you sure?
Yeah, 100%.
Sit down, Harsha. Shut up, fam. Get out of here.
Yeah, it was. It was 4-0. They clean swept the series. Then they did the same at MLG Vegas. They've done the same now. They're just keeping it up, you know? But that means if they ever lose a single map in a series, it's over. They're all just going to collapse.
Wow, I think I'd rather go back to misinterpreting Winston's lab stats.
Yeah, that sounds better. All right, let's finish up that discussion of the finals. One thing we haven't spoke about because we've just been focusing on the matchups, but Contenders playoffs was actually the first time that the Blizzard Arena in Los Angeles was unveiled. We got to look around there. We had a lovely time. We got to see all the facilities. Honestly, blew me away. The amount of work that goes into these productions and the amount of the teams that are behind it. You got literally, almost 100 production staff, if not more, behind the scenes, working hard on.
You just pulled that number straight out your ass.
Absolutely, yeah. But I'm going to continue talking here because it just blew my mind at how much work goes into it. And I think we were talking about outside of it, Josh, but you said like for every 1% of production value you want to go up, it's like it just exponentially goes up in cost. And what are you doing with your camera?
Just taking you on a
this entire podcast. You've just been. Whoa, you're right, boys. Oh, don't worry about me. Whoa. What's going on? Just keep it still.
That sounds like Bren's first-person perspective from Guildhall.
We're not going to talk about that.
Podcast. The difference is we've got a VOD to remember this, whereas Bren doesn't have a VOD up there.
No, we got some evidence. People haven't quite found it yet, but if you want to head over and follow Dashner on Twitter, we've got some great evidence of what transpired.
God Almighty! There was a video of me. This is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, never mind.
No, 1 o'clock in the morning. I was asleep. I was out of it. Like I turned in early for the night because I was destroyed. And Josh, Mr. Sideshow, and Dashner had camera equipment in my room. So I had a room key, and they came in when I was asleep. And Josh had the great idea of recording me, like literally waking me up and interviewing me when I was asleep in my bed. And he was just like, "Oh, what do you feel like the difference is, or like the problems you had to overcome between moving from TF2 to Overwatch?" And I'm still asleep. Like, my eyes are open, and I'm interpreting what he's saying, but I'm just like, what?
Mate, Josh has done way worse. He fucking showed me a video that I didn't even know he had.
Whoa.
You subscribe to his Patreon for those ones, Harsha.
Let's not start making this a pissing contest over who has the worst YouTube videos. I can't win that. It only goes badly, and I will get fired. So let's.
I will say, how's he gooch, Bren?
It's fine. No, that's another bet I made, right? Listen, apparently I made this when I can't remember doing it. Josh does not want me to say it at all. Listen.
I remember this one. No, Josh tried to palm this bet off onto me, by the way, with an arm wrestle. He fucking destroyed me, right? We're about to we're about to arm wrestle, and Josh was like, "Okay, if I win this, then you have to do this instead of me." Mitch, like, we won't say what the bet was. It was heinous, right? So I'm there, like, I don't know what's going on. I'm about to catch an Uber. Yeah, I'm about to arm wrestle this guy, and all of a sudden, Dennis, he's a Hulk there. He counts down 3, 2, 1. On 2, Sideshow just goes. My wrist is like hanging off like this. I'm like, God, I'll be mincing for the rest of my life with this, right? I'm literally walking around like that. My wrist is completely fucked. I'm like, wow, what was it again that Sideshow really didn't want to do? And then I found out, and I said, yeah, I'm not fucking doing that. I'm actually not doing that. I may have lost his arm wrestle, but
I forgot that happened.
Are we allowed to talk about this on the podcast?
Wow, I remember being really apologetic because I thought I'd actually broken your wrist or something.
It's fine. I had bad wrist anyway, but I was not ready for that. I almost fell off the fucking table, which is awesome. This moment, I'll be honest. I don't know what needed for if not for fucking arm wrestling, but God.
Champion arm wrestler.
It's just occurred to me that the people, they don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
The bet.
They don't know what this bet was.
Sideshow was going to have to wax Bren's ass.
It wasn't my ass.
It was your ass.
Oh, wait. Listen, we were doing that drinking game, right? And then I won it, but I didn't know what was going on, like, at all. And that meant I get to choose whose ass was being waxed and who got to do it.
Oh.
And I picked. Who did I pick?
Was it Puckett?
You probably picked your own.
Internet Hulk.
I think
you picked your own.
I made.
You made me do Internet Hulk.
Yeah. Internet Hulk.
Did you do it?
I think this is the point at which we.
It's on the camera now, boys. Next LAN.
And the video gets demonetized.
We've been demonetized this entire time.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay, let's move on away from drinking games. We were talking about the Blizzard Arena. Somehow we got to that point. I don't know how we got to that tangent, but I mean, the Blizzard Arena was just sick. It was fantastic. The entire experience of being there, the entire venue looked great. and it was just massive. I don't know where I'm going from this. Anyone want to interject?
We played on
Yeah,
stage.
I can.
Oh,
Everything was really cool. The setup was good. The stage, for people wondering, the stage is not going to be the same as the Overwatch League stage. Obviously, we're using that for contenders and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff's still being built out, but the facilities was really good. I mean, you know, I think our green room was Johnny Carson's old room, including the dead hookers in the closet. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
There's actually a secret exit. There's a yeah, they were fresh. It was a secret exit though from this green room where you could actually get out of the whole studios without having to go through any public areas. So I would assume that Johnny Carson didn't really fancy interaction with people, because I walked down these dank maintenance hallways from the green room and found that you could get out. So it's a really cool complex actually to check out. People are gonna love it as well. Like the frontage looks sick, the gear store looks awesome. So it's gonna be a perfect venue to run this bitch.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are gonna enjoy coming out and watching the Overwatch League games. Like if you're from anywhere local, I think you should definitely go out and like pick a team that you really like and go out and watch one of their games. Atmosphere was sick.
didn't even plug localization there.
Oh, I mean, it's all. How does that make any sense? Like it's all in Grapevine for the first season.
Yeah, and basically as well, like a lot of the teams, my understanding, are going to spend a lot of time there, even outside of game days. There's going to be the facilities for teams to basically have everything they need to conduct practice and stuff like that. And my understanding is that a large proportion of teams have all sort of expressed interest in using that as their base of operations when it comes to like the officials. And it's kind of cool for us casters as well, because we have access to these teams. We can go and chat to them and see how things are going, and ask some questions. So exactly, for us, that's really awesome. It's like having this wealth of information at our fingertips. All we need to do is ask nicely. So it's cool.
All right, so we can probably safely move on now. Speaking of the Blizzard Arena and Overwatch League, we received some details since we last did the podcast. At least we didn't talk about it too much, but we now know that there's the preseason and it's starting in December time. We get a little bit of a sneak peek at some of it, but the actual season will be beginning in January time. So we've actually got some dates on the board for Overwatch League. It is though, isn't it? Technically,
no. January is not 2018, is it?
Let's be honest.
2017.
Obviously, the technicality is there that there will be Overwatch League matches played during the year of 2017, but the caveat is that the actual season will be kicking off in 2018. So, it's might even be a PR move, but I'm all for seeing how these teams are shaping up early. It's going to be a fucking Chuck E. Cheese clown fiesta though, because these teams will some of them are still getting visas and getting contracts and stuff like that, but it's going to be a bit of fun. It's going to be a cool teaser. Get people excited about it. We'll see some branding. Might even see some uniforms. There's a couple other cool stuffs coming out on the broadcast side that's been worked on as well. So
I have a feeling that a lot of this stuff is going to come out during BlizzCon, actually. I mean, obviously I don't have any way of knowing, but, it'd be a nice time to unveil Overwatch League stuff as they did last year.
Yeah, be hype.
Yeah, they love unveiling stuff during BlizzCon, don't they? So I'm pretty sure they're going to unveil something, Probably something big.
Thanks for that, Josh.
Excellent input from Joshua Wilkinson coming in with the
actually
he's dropping his knowledge bombs.
He's gonna replace myself with the dog again.
There we go.
I just woke him up. He doesn't look happy.
One of the things I wanted to add though is that I took a picture of the Overwatch League trophy, and everybody's tweeting at me saying that's not the Overwatch League trophy, that's the World Cup trophy. No, they unveiled the Overwatch League trophy at the World Cup, and they casted around the Overwatch League trophy while at World Cup. Not confusing at all, but that is correct. The Overwatch League trophy.
The Overwatch League trophy is similar stylistically to the Call of Duty World League trophy.
Yeah.
They and what people start to understand now, although these are two different franchises, obviously with MLG's involvement and all that kind of stuff, and Blizzard Activision being a conglomerate, those two concepts as well, Overwatch League and COD World League, are going to share a lot of
Wait a second. I'm pretty sure you got that wrong, because the COD World League trophy is the one with the globe on top, right? And that's the one that looks similar to the World Cup trophy.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So, but they're sharing.
Getting mixed up here. Yeah. But the point otherwise remains the same.
The point being, I was right. That's all I wanted to add.
Of course. Of course.
But it's also, the fact that, I think we've missed something here as well when we're talking about it, because they also announced that it was going to, what did they say? Playoffs in July, I think they said, was part of the announcement.
Actually, go ahead. Sorry.
Which has actually given it like a length, which we never officially knew before, as far as I'm aware. They had always floated something around like the 6-month mark or something like that, but they never said exactly how long they were intending it to be, which gives you a nice off season.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to fill
Well,
it
it gives you a massive off season theoretically. Like it's like half a year or something, which is kind of cool. But like I've looked at it and I don't really know much more than the average person about it. But I'm like, should I like stockpile rations for those 6 months if like there isn't a lot of stuff going on? Like I've just like moved to the US. I'm like, I'm gonna start fucking drinking my own piss or something by month 9. I'm Bear Grylls or some shit. It's like I'm gonna cut. No, or worse, I'll be fucking casting Lucio Ball for something to do. Like I hope there's gonna be a lot in that part of the year.
Actually, I feel like less optimistic than you guys because I imagine there's going to be like a month break before and after the regular season, or I mean before and after the full season, right? That's like
maybe
3.5 months, maybe. That's not that long.
3.5 months of off season.
Yeah.
No, because if they say they're going to end in July, okay, so they take August off.
Playoffs start in July.
They said playoffs. Oh, okay, so maybe it runs into August or something.
Then they're not that long. Like what's like they'll probably be 2 weeks of playoffs.
You think so?
At an estimate, I wouldn't expect it to be like a month of playoffs.
I assumed it'd be something like the NFL where you have 6 teams going to the playoffs and then a bye, so like it'd be like a month basically, right?
I feel like the broadcast schedule for that will be more dense, given how they'd. I feel like they rather wouldn't stretch it out. Like they did say, I spoke to Blizzard. They said, yeah, there's actually going to be quite a pronounced off season.
Okay.
Even in terms of like shoulder content and stuff, that will also probably ramp down during that period because obviously there's not much to talk about. They really want there to be quite a contrast between what is on and off season. I just hope, we heard whispers, right? The concept of there being third-party events and other stuff like that. Like, when's that going to happen? Because I'll give you the big tip right now. I'd be very surprised if ESL do an Overwatch event again. It definitely won't be at IEM. MLG is fucking Blizzard for all intents and purpose. So there's DreamHack, there's E-League.
And maybe Apex brings them back. I don't know about that.
Right. Yeah, I think Apex will still be a thing. Yeah, Apex. So, Brian, like I'd like to hope there's a circuit of these. Like there's a circuit of external lands. That would be.
It would be nice to have like minimum 1 per month in the off season. If you have more than a month's break in the off season, I think that's a bit poor. But we'll see. I mean, the off season has potential to be incredible. Like maybe even much better than the regular season. Because for one, I prefer direct tournament structures. I feel like I like playoffs. They add a lot of tension as you go through them, and I love seeing like them cycle over again and again. It's like my preferred structure is kind of like how CS works, but we're not getting that for Overwatch. That's fine. But in the off season, you also get any of the contenders teams that come up in any region theoretically could play against the best out teams, and you could have this fantastic clash where you see like new talent that should be signed for Overwatch League, and then the signers are like, "Whoa, dude, these guys are probably legit. They haven't just been trashing on wherever Australia for 10 months. They're actually a good team." I threw that one in there for you, Mitch, but Blank will never beat no Overwatch.
You're halfway across the world, you're fucking boy. It's true though. It is true. Like, what would be the most exciting thing for me? Like, we're going to see a whole season of Overwatch League teams. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Shanghai, San Fran, London, whatever. But at what point? Because obviously, Contenders doesn't have a prescribed path of like you don't get into the Overwatch League just from playing Contenders. It's not a progression thing. So we still want to see these kind of interactions because we still want to see a link between these two levels of competition. We don't want them to exist in a vacuum separate from each other because there's no fun in that. Where's the punditry going to come from? Where's the excitement about teams coming up? So I want to see a calendar, honestly, that's chock full of this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then GC Busan can beat everybody in Overwatch League.
If they're not torn apart first.
Later, when we're talking about these rosters, because I want to move on to the rosters now, which we've received a few of them. Received, again, thank God they're written down here because I would have been leaking stuff all over the place. But I know which ones to talk about now. So NRG have announced their roster. Obviously, they've got the players outlined. From looking at it, I actually don't rate it as highly as some people do, at least around the scene. I
actually think those initial ratings were when it was a different roster because like they had a core that they were working with, and then they were shuffling people in and out. And at one point, they were really good, and then they were like above phase according to these like scrim rumors.
I think scrims just go either way. Like there are people at Contenders telling me they're destroying Envious. Like I don't really care about what people say about scrims, honestly.
I think when you talk to somebody like the Envy guys, if they actually respect people and they know how well they were playing in scrims, then that to me carries more weight than other people
Right, but at the
Like
same time,
if a top team says that they were on like their kind of level.
at the same time, you'd people in Envious saying different things as well, right?
Yeah, that's also true.
I
Either way, I feel like this is a slightly weaker team.
I think it's
Well,
middling.
we're talking about the San Fran roster, right?
Yeah.
Look, like honestly, I love Vidi Cutie. We haven't seen hide nor hair of that guy in a heck of a long time. I'm greatly concerned about his impact in this team. And if you recall, the last like his legacy, we'll use it, with air quotes, declined greatly, especially around the World Cup and when we started to see him play on energy. Because honestly, he was not the same player, and he was he was known for his McCree. But honestly, his greatest success on McCree was when there was another McCree on his damn team, and they were playing him at the same time. Like, IDDQD really shone early on in the beta, but he turned into a really passive McCree player, and obviously struggled a lot in that regard. His Tracer was decent, but his Reaper was not. And this obviously, looking past the fact that this team's full of hitscan players. And that, like the structure of the team kind of raises eyebrows. I think Super is fucking really good player.
He's underrated for sure.
He's insanely good player. Dak's an interesting Lucio to bring to this team, especially given that he likes to, go coast to coast a lot on these maps, and sort of he's that kind of player that really quite enjoys the fact that he has that mobility. Fair in mind, also they're removing that bug from the game, which is just a very small point to be interested in. I'd love to hear the process of discussion and the justification for these players. Sleepy is fine. I mean, you want to bring him in, that's fine. I don't know much about the guy, to be honest with you. So,
I think one of the things that I've been very curious about signing Lucios that are so aggro, I guess, is the way to put it. Because normally when you look at or think about good Lucios, you think about people like Toby, like Waka Waka from Kongdu, who are very like peel focused rather. Oh, what's this?
I wanted to poke my eyes out when someone wrote an article about the second best Lucio in the world and put Waka Waka in there. Shaking my head. He's the Lucio on the second best team in the world.
Yeah.
Not the Lucio.
Yeah, like being fair, it's hard to think about how Lucio stack up other than we know Toby's definitely at the top, right?
For sure.
So you don't think about the carry Lucios, so to speak, as kind of those good Lucios because they're not the ones that are playing around the team. But I think that when you pair Dak with this team, it kind of makes sense because he's played with Sinatra before, but he's one of those players that's like balls to the wall, like a lot of the other people on this team. So I think that if you're going to make Dak work, it has to be on this sort of team.
I actually just straight up don't understand why IDDQ is in this roster. IDDQD. So
there you go. You got it. It's
I got
right.
it.
It's not like your job is speaking on camera. It's fine.
IDDQD.
I did the cutter.
Right. Yeah, I love the guy, but I don't really see what.
Yeah,
I don't see what people apparently are seeing to want to put him in this roster.
Like maybe you need another hit scan while Sinatra's away, but they already have Dante and Baby Bay.
He does have great branding.
I honestly think that I'm going to be super cynical. I think it's just some contract thing where he was like, he managed to bargain his way onto the team. He's got like good following. He's actually got a massive following now after his time spent on NRG, kind of streaming all the time and stuff.
In terms of followers,
I just don't see
like
how I just don't see how he would get playtime on this team. I just don't get it. Like, when Sinatra's in the roster, do you ever field him over Sinatra?
Well,
do you ever field him over Baby Bay or Dante? Maybe when Dante has to play Diva or something and Nomi's on tank, they need IDDQD and Baby Bay to play together.
The issue is they have 8 players and 2 of them can't play until whenever it is during the middle of the season, right? So they do need him for the first half of the season at least.
But it seems like instead of getting if all you want is a stand-in for when Sinatra comes back, why don't you get somebody that plays either something good that is like complementary to the other players on your team instead of having somebody with literal overlapping hero pools but worse. And instead they've got IDDQD.
I can't imagine this is the end of the signings that they're going to make because they did not really sign a projectile player. They don't have a single Pharah on their team. I know Super memed about it, the Pharah, but they don't really have a Pharah player on this team. And while they do have like plenty of people that can play Genji, they don't have a Genji specialist. So I think they do need to bring in one of those projectile specialists, I guess.
Fairs. All fair points. I just look at the roster and I feel like people are going to be overrating them. I mean, when I heard Sinatra was going to be in it, I was like, oh, okay. Probably one of the best tracers in the world. I can understand why they paid so much for him. But a good tracer doesn't make the team, and if you're not really working players around it, then you're going to be struggling with that. Any final thoughts on this San Fran roster?
They probably won't be the worst in the league.
Oh, definitely.
Wink, wink.
There's no doubt about that. The people are sort of kind of freaking out about this one. You motherfuckers have no idea. Hold on to your hats, bitches.
Right. Let's no leaks. Let's talk about the branding of certain teams now, because we don't actually know the rosters that are being fielded for this particular team, but the Shanghai Dragons, that's the name that's been unveiled for them.
For the London team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's probably, out of all the teams that have been announced, at least branding wise, the best and most fitting one so far.
Well, how many teams is it though? Like 2, I would say?
2.
2.
Yeah, so
Bren is foolish.
2, boys, 2. Yeah, okay, so first off, I was lucky enough to hang out at Team 4 in the offices when I went to Grapevine a couple of weeks ago, and I saw all the branding. I saw they have a war room there with all the concepts and stuff up there, and I think these two, obviously, we've got the Dragons and the Fuel, both look really good. They're definitely the least cool of the ones that they've actually got coming. There's some amazing ones there. They're still really good, mind you, but what I really appreciate is not only that Blizzard are ensuring that a high degree of fidelity remains between the city, like the teams and their namesake cities, and also their original esports rosters that they come from. Subtle. If you're kind of into design and you're kind of into those little hints, you'll really enjoy it. But I love it. I think the Shanghai one for me is a little bit, personally, I feel it's a little bit basic, but it's pretty striking and it's nice. I like it.
And I think somebody posted a video to the subreddit yesterday where Optic's CEO was saying, like, he just started laughing in the middle of a sentence because he just thought his branding was so cool.
Yeah, I think he was looking at it off camera or something.
Yeah.
And he was loving it. So that's pretty good, especially when we know that like he would have much preferred to have the Optic Gaming logo there. But when orgs get excited about logos that aren't even representative of their brand, their initial brand, then you know that's a big deal. And I'm pretty sure like Blizzard initially outsourced a lot of this design. And then eventually said, fuck it, you know what, we're going to do it ourselves. We don't like these, and we're going to do it ourselves. So they're part of this process, should I say. And
that's cool. I'm
loving the results. Oh, man. When I walked into that room this last year of talking about the Overwatch League and thinking about it and theory crafting and fucking getting my ass here into America, none of that shit was real. It was just bullshit jumping through hoops. But as soon as I stood in that room and looked around, that's when it all became real. For me, anyway, this whole thing is actually going to happen. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see the rest of these released.
Well, after seeing what they did with the FNRGFE logo, I'm sure they'll do a good job.
They're the graphics people, surely. What I worry about is that obviously they're going to expand in Season 2, right? And you are looking at China. It's a big market. You're probably looking to get other people in there at least some point in the game's history. What the fuck do you make the logo? Because the dragon has already been used. What do you make it? China, dragon. Everything in China that's esports has dragons on it.
Like a Mongolian horde.
What did you just say? Think about it. That's a totally different country, Bren. What is...
No, but they had a big part in China's history.
Sure, by attacking them all the time.
They had a big part
in... like the... I don't
know.
Way
the English and the French had a big part in each other.
Give me a city.
1 in 8 males.
Give me a city, like
1 in 8 males have Genghis Khan's DNA running in them.
Wait a second. Give me a city. What are you asking for? Another city in China?
Oh
yeah, Beijing, right?
What's the capital? Yeah, there you go.
Let's go. Beijing, the Beijing hordes. You know, we just have Genghis Khan. A picture of Genghis Khan as the logo.
There's no relation whatsoever, bro. If it's only 3 kingdoms, there's literally no relationship between the Golden Horde and the Chinese. Are you kidding?
Bren, your history knowledge is so awful.
We can make it work. We can make it work. Trust me. Listen, I represent the average Overwatch viewer.
You can't associate China and Horde. It's not okay.
They won't know.
It's problematic, Bren.
It's okay. All right, what else we got? Like what? When I think of China, I think of like.
Be very careful.
Like the Silk Road. You can have like the Silk Road, a team that's based around the Silk Road. Just like you have the.
Jesus Christ.
Let me get the city of China. Actually, hold on.
This is abysmal.
So you can even think of the Chinese zodiac as a great example of like some of those
Nah, you don't want that.
involved.
Listen, much better to have like a road.
Why wouldn't you do the zodiac? That's like, oh my god, whatever.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm just saying,
have,
look at the
Shenzhen.
schemes as well. They're really good for embodiments of like a Chinese culture
True.
in that kind of form.
You could have the Shenzhen Roadsters.
See, I was joking about ignorant people that only use dragons to associate with China,
Oh.
and then actually we spiraled into how the Mongolian hordes would actually be an incredible logo for China. So now I don't know what to think.
Yeah.
Tell you what, pick up a copy of Dynasty Warriors and just play through it because it's not fully historically accurate, but there are some elements there, and maybe
It's good for your
Yeah,
level,
then
Bren.
yourself.
It's good for your
Yeah.
level.
No, but it's for real though. I represent the average viewer in Overwatch. That everyone's a moron. Me
I think
Okay.
you're smarter than the
Like-
average viewer in Overwatch, actually.
included.
Sadly, that is true. But I mean, like a good name, although it won't work for reasons, would be Dynasty for China. That would also make sense
True.
because that was what their lineages were all referred to. That won't be a thing. But you know,
Do they have emperors in China?
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. You find a team that begins with E, and then you just call them the something emperors.
Okay.
I'll find one. Give me a second.
Nice
Well,
branding.
It doesn't have to be an alliteration.
No, it does.
It does not, yeah.
For me, it does.
That's from Bren.
Shanghai Dragons is never mind. Yeah.
Dallas
Yeah,
Fuel,
that's
alliteration.
Brennan's going to legally change his name to Brennan Book.
Oh.
Catchy that way, isn't it?
It is.
Let's move on, please, to the next branding, the only other branding name that we.
I'll tell you what would
know.
actually be sick. The where are these actually buried? You know the terracotta army.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That shit would be amazing for like a thing. I bet there's some kind of like legal reason why they couldn't use it, but I have no idea where they're buried in. Like Qingling Bu. I've never heard of that place. Okay.
Okay. Makes sense.
Maybe there's a city there that's interesting.
It's in what the museum, like the terracotta like display.
But they are actually buried somewhere. They like buried them with one of the
Yeah.
I
one
think
of the
Xi'an
founding.
in China.
I know very little about China.
Let's talk about the next name. Dallas Fuel. All right. It's short, snappy. They got a
Actually,
bitch and Genji skin to go with it.
That skin does look fire.
I don't want anything to encourage Bren to play more Genji.
All right. So firstly, like I saw some people. While we're talking about Bren being smarter than most of the internet users, try not to be disparaging, but people thought literally that this was the fucking mascot. Like Genji was going to be the mascot for Dallas Fuel. It's fucking shit name, shit mascot, color schemes. Okay, first of all, it's not the mascot. It's just an embodiment of a skin concept that's being demonstrated, right? So we can all relax on that one. I don't know. I kind of like it, but I mean, it's like, how do you refer to a team like by their mascot? You know what I mean? Like you talk about the 49ers, or you talk about the Rams, talk about the Fuel. You can still, we good boys.
Yeah, we're sorry, my bad.
Anyone
Yeah.
want to share anything?
Actually, by the book.
Yeah, somebody in my
Nah, that's cool.
place.
No, so I'm just saying. So I like it. I like the concept. I'm pretty sure that the investor for the Dallas team is like oil giant, right? Like they've got a lot of money. So again, there's fidelity that ties back in towards their origins, and also the color scheme ties back in towards the endemic theme they came from. So I
think
like
the
it.
logo
I mean, it's not the most imposing, but it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. I don't know why everybody was so mad about it. It looks fun.
I think
like logos.
the thing is, yeah. Well,
Because
I
am
like that
technical,
logo.
but also because they just look cool.
I wanted to make a clip about being simple, but you already did it for me, essentially. No, what I think people were upset a little bit about the name because most sports names you just kind of grow up with, and so you just take it that is the name of the sport. You never really analyze it as like, is this a really good name?
Yeah.
Whereas with these, you're kind of coming at it fresh rather than having lots of time for it to ingrain itself or like grow up with it in any sense. I don't think the Fuel is a bad name at all. Like the Fuel will be perfectly fine.
I mean, they literally live in the oil capital of where. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't even know if that's true, but
Isn't there an NFL team called like the Cleveland Browns or something?
yeah, that's
Used
a
to-
fucking shit name.
Or like, isn't there one called the?
No, there's the Steelers.
And
in
we
there
used to
as
have
well.
the Houston Oilers. So I mean,
Houston Oil. Really?
Oilers. Yeah.
Oilers. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have the fuelers. Don't worry about it.
Fuelers.
Just don't think about it. Just
Hashtag
Well, like,
blue,
like-
blue, baby.
you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers,
Yeah.
for example, which might have
all
some
these names.
similar-
I mean, they're just very, sports-based names, or not sports-based, but like they sound like sports names, right?
Yeah. I think the Dallas feels fine.
Yeah.
I think people will just take time to get used to it.
I mean, Envious had no. First of all, okay, so Envious's name is based on like a grammatical fallacy anyway, and it was like, oh, so sick, and there was no mascot, anyway, for that. So I kind of like that there is one, or there's like an embodiment or like a symbolism instead of literally the 2 letters that don't appear that way in the name anyway.
And I just can't stand how they have their name is like capitalized every other letter. I can't understand why orgs do that. The worst offender of this, by the way, is Envision. Like, why have they capitalized the V?
We know the owner of Envision. He does a lot of things that don't make sense. Nice guy, by the way. But yeah, again, like he obviously, he came into esports and he looks after his boys. But again, like I don't necessarily know like what value there is in doing that. It's like we just solved the fucking capital S in esports issue. Maybe we can start moving on to some other stuff. It looks cool. It's a throwback to the old IRC days, I think, in my opinion.
It's actually branded as esports with a capital S, by the way. Envision Esports.
Well, I don't really give a shit personally about that stuff, but yeah, I mean, some people do care. So yeah, that should be fixed. I used the capital S in teams that I formed and managed when I was younger, but I'll do.
But we've all grown since then, Mitch.
No, we've all matured.
Some more than others, right, Bren?
Let's talk about no more branding because we don't actually know, but we can talk about at least C9 Kong Do. Harsha's giggling. Mainly, I imagine this is because of that Reddit post that got put up of me following that that London Spitfires Twitter.
Fake
the
news.
only reason I did that was because they ran a poll saying, what should we call our team? And immediately afterwards, they registered every single team as that name. And I was like, oh, Spitfire sounds sick.
So you're saying that they made Twitter profiles for every single one of those teams?
Yeah.
This is a very checkable lie.
You're fucking lying.
What was another one? London. I actually don't know what the others were.
Nah, don't worry about it. Just don't search it up. Let's just talk about this.
You're so full of shit!
Just, I'll let you guys talk about this one, and we can just rush past it. Easy.
Okay.
Well, anyway, if that's let's talk about that. If that is the case, I like the idea of Spitfires. I like planes and shit.
Yeah.
I
mean, fire.
Yeah, don't you ever? I mean, I kind of like there's a proud aviation history as well in the UK. And, you know, that's really quite nice. I mean, if we're going to talk about speculation, we can probably go for days. But I wonder. I'm more interested in the color scheme actually. You know, we're going to see some fat Union Jacks. You know, or we're going to see a bit more of like maybe the go from the.
I spent so much money trying to get the Union Jack player profile icon in Overwatch, and it's been two summer games, and I still don't have it. I've got like almost every single one, other than that one. I've got like the South Korea one. I've got like the US one.
That's the one I've been trying to get actually.
That's all I want. All I want is the Union Jack, and I spent so much goddamn money, and it's the only thing you cannot buy with credits in Overwatch, and it just annoys me. Sorry.
I'd say that was a foolish desire that you probably should have given up on after you sunk that much money into it. But That's how they get you, Bren. That's how they get you.
I just really wanted people to know you.
I have limited sympathy for that.
Yeah. As for the C9 Kongdu merger, I think it did a bit of a blow to the European and North American C9 guys.
Yeah.
Who I don't think were particularly expecting it, but it's at the end of the day, it's a fucking business, and Cloud9 weren't looking that great until the playoffs.
I wonder what influence the current coach of C9 had on that whole process. Well, the coach of the North American C9 squad. I don't know what Bishop's movements were following the decline of that particular roster, but you know, it's obviously it's not hard to draw a link between Bishop and.
I can actually help. Yeah, because he was part of Uncia, right? But
well, no, he played on Patera, I think.
Yeah, he played on
Patera. Yeah, he did.
And then he was coaching him for a bit.
So I can actually help with this because I know, essentially what happened was that he had gone to Korea for scouting, and what Jack put on Reddit, he said that they weren't able to build an NA team, or an NA and EU team rather, because they were looking into it and the bios were just so ridiculous and stuff like that. And while all this was going on, the opportunity to presented itself to Bishop to build, or to pick up literally what people were considering the best or the second best team in the world. Like if people are going to make it that hard for you to build a team, and then this comes along, like, I don't know, seems like an obvious decision to me. So yeah,
if you want to win, I get it. I mean, we saw what the C9, the European roster, was doing. We also saw the struggles of the North American roster when, you know, they didn't acclimatize, or they didn't integrate, you know, Kaiser to the degree they would have liked. They had a ostensibly incredibly good roster, but very few chances to prove themselves in a LAN environment. I think it was really only like the Takeover 2. So like things just definitely didn't fall into place for them. It's tough though. It's tough. I mean, I would rather see the best Overwatch than Overwatch League. I really don't want it to be a laughingstock. I want it to be competitive and stuff like that. But still, as someone who's quite close, you know, to the European scene and these players, and even to the NA one, it hurts. It's troubling. Yeah, it's troubling to see that. Yeah, obviously they're going to be passed over in favor of a Korean team. Even though I understand from a, you know, a competitive standpoint, there are going to be a lot of players that miss out on Overwatch League, a lot of really good players, and that's unavoidable. It doesn't make it any easier to see, because when we started this whole journey out a couple of years ago, and we started casting, we would just, all we really wanted to do was just to do it for a living, for a career with our friends, you know, like with the guys that we, you know, came up with, and the guys that we spent time with at Lance, just talking mad shit and talking about what we wanted to do. So, you know, without trying to wax too poetic here, it is a shame that, you know, I can't have that experience with all the players that I can't hang out with AKM and all that kind of stuff, but that's life. It's not a game anymore. As much as it is a game, it's not.
Having said all of that as well, if they brought in 4 Koreans to the analyst desk, and, you know, I miss out on gigs because of that, I'm not going to be sad. I'm just going to work my ass off. So there you go. The Koreans are coming. Get ready for it. And just the first casualties.
You wouldn't be sad if they replaced you with people that literally just couldn't speak English. I think that would say a lot about you, not the Koreans.
I wouldn't put it past him, to be honest.
Listen,
why are you saying that Koreans can't speak English, mate? Maybe they pull in like Bishop. And,
fair enough.
Name Tweet as well as the analyst.
Name Tweet.
Nice guy.
Can you speak English?
Mins on the analyst desk as well.
Well, Mins is good, but he can only speak in 5 syllables. Yeah. 5 syllables, and then he has to take a play. So that might be a little bit hard.
I think that'd be amazing. You could just have him on the desk in the middle, and he doesn't speak the entire time, but when the camera pans to him, he just...
it's difficult for production though, because they have to put on motivational music every time he speaks and then fade it out and fade it back in. So it's really, really hard to get the timings right from a workflow standpoint.
That guy was so fun to talk to actually when we met him in.
And he just said, like, I get a lot of shit for this, but it's how I cope or how I unwind and stuff like that. So I'm like, that's fine, bro. I'm just gonna give a shit for it every waking day.
I'm glad he's like comfortable showing him, like, you know, his personality though, like not being, I guess, hidden about it, even if it's eccentric.
Oh, Josh,
what have you done?
Oops, what did I do?
What have you done?
Unbelievable.
Numpty.
I think I pressed the what the hell have I done? Oh my god, what have I actually done? Holy
How much we got to cover anyway, boys? This is falling apart at the seams.
It is.
We got a few more things to talk about. Don't worry.
I'm nearly. I actually don't know what I've done. Okay, I'm back.
There we go.
I pressed the keyboard command and
the overlay. Or?
No, we good.
Oh, you're good. All right. The reason I like the fact that they've just picked up Kongdu, well, at least the reason I did like it before Apex was kicking off, was the fact that, oh, look, we're actually going to win something. The London and the UK is actually going to, like, I've been watching way too much of the Football World Cup, and it's like, Jesus, this is disappointment.
UK
just, like,
esports boys.
Distilled into us is just disappointment from a young age over losses. And now it's like, we actually might have a chance now that we're importing the Koreans. So...
I mean, forward.
Yeah, but that's another story. I mean, that's a whole different kettle of fish. I don't know. Like, how would you feel though? I mean, this is what North American fans, I guess, may have been experiencing for some time, with NBS being obviously not North American by any stretch.
Oh no, you know what happened? These guys are all white, so they're like, you know, basically NA.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, like, there's no room in esports for like like blatant and like negative sense of nationalism. Like we don't need that at all. But obviously there comes a degree from the pride of not just London being the best team, but the scene, the scene giving birth to the best talent, and like because you feel like you have an ownership of that scene, you're a part of it. Do you think there's like a disconnect maybe when when obviously a Korean team comes in, they put on the Union Jack and they fight in your name? I don't know. I had to deal with this.
I've been spending too much time with Monty, so I just don't care. I'm like, literally, let's go. South Korea, UK, that can't make a difference. As long as they're using the London name and we're winning, I don't care.
Yeah,
localization, boys.
Same for me. But also, when one of your aims of localization is to bring in people from nearby and like attach them to your team, it is very obvious immediately. Like if you go out and you show Kongdu and like their interviews and stuff to UK players that you're trying to, or not players, but like UK potential fans that you're trying to drag in, like why the fuck are 6 Koreans representing?
I mean, are you going to engage with these overly polite people when UK is literally the most cess heap of individuals that has ever existed?
Yeah, just,
and I mean,
just
you can definitely
guys,
like,
already.
You can definitely attach yourself to them, but it takes time, and I think you miss out on that insta grab that they were hoping to get with localization.
Here's how we can brush over this, right? We just pretend that the UK actually took over Korea at some point during the Empire. And that way, they are technically English. We just imagine that it happened. People will believe us because we took over so many countries that they actually won't know. And like me, they just won't do the research. So
somebody teach Bren some history.
Speechless, as I was intending.
It's just an incredible strategy.
It's not the point, to be honest. Okay, so here's because I mean, identifying with players, right? Because this brings up a topic. I mean, maybe we've got time, but talking about there's a disconnect between the value that maybe like your community and Reddit, for example, and then on coaches and selectors put on marketability for these teams, right? Like Reddit's like, wow, what's this roster? The best players, blah, 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 blah. Like, why are why are there all these trash players? But when I speak to Overwatch League owners and GMs, they're saying like, it's really important for us to start and hit the ground running in terms of creating a brand that people want to get behind and they want to associate with, they want to identify with. And obviously, when you're bringing in 6 Korean players to that London slot, there will be a disconnect in terms of that relatability, perhaps that marketability in a sense, they're these people's customs and perhaps their approach and their daily life is not exactly like an average UK person. I mean, Koreans don't beat up 6 people before midday. It just doesn't happen. So how are you going to reach out and actually see yourself reflected in these players? I don't know. So I wonder, like, if that's a blow to marketability, or if that's like a worthwhile risk to take if winning the league is better than having a big fan base or building up this movement or following behind you in your home scene.
I guess people will figure it out over time as well.
I'm sure they'll try and down the road build up talent. I think that they just right now are going for winning the league.
Let's move on because we've been at this for some time, and I imagine a lot of it is going to be edited out because we've been saying, or at least I've been saying some inappropriate things.
I'm keeping all of it.
Oh, excellent! Let's lose my job in esports. Let's just
what job?
Let's get me.
What job? I never recall there being one of those.
Kapow! Anyway, right, let's move on to Miraculous Youngsters winning the Premier Series. I watched none of that because we were doing Contenders at the same time and it was at a weird time zone. So great input by me. Did anyone pay attention to this tournament?
I gotta say, I paid attention to it in terms of the results. I didn't pay attention in terms of watching the games yet. I'm planning to catch up on the pods afterwards, but basically they dunked on people.
Yeah, I actually found it really interesting. The last time I really got to watch the Miraculous Youngster squad properly was during the Nexus Cup, actually, which was of specific interest because that was when we got to see the Chinese and the Korean scenes intermingle a little bit more. And they fucked on Runaway. Yeah. It was very, very impressive. And for me, that was the first time that I got to see actually that since APAC, which wasn't impressive for China, but these Chinese teams actually really showing up. The LGDs and these Miraculous Youngsters of the world actually showing the Chinese scene has grown in leaps and bounds. And this result as well, 1246 were the previous champions of the Overwatch Premier Series, by the way. And 1246 is actually a team that hasn't changed all that much since a long time ago. They're still using players like Samsara and Samful and BBCat. And Samsara used to be like this mad Reaper one trick back in the Baylor.
He's the guy that did this, right?
Yeah. He has one face, and it's frightening, to be honest. Like he looks really mad all the time. Yeah. So I'm impressed not only by the depth of Chinese scene to see such a new team like Miraculous Youngster, new, take it to Korean teams previously in the year, and now for that same team to sort of sit top of the tables there, I'm quite chuffed to see it be the case. And also, where the fuck is LGD?
This is also
they lost out to Miracle Team 1 first round of quarterfinals.
Yeah.
This is also the same team that introduced that anti-dive strat that Korea adopted afterwards as well.
Which the Koreans actually adapted themselves. The Koreans looked to the Chinese scene and learned some strategies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now they've kind of moved away from it as well. So, and they're still doing super well. 1246 are a weird team as well. They're playing at APAC. They locked in their spot. They got to the grand finals, but they had a shocking online. Is it all online? No, it's all online, isn't it? But anyway, I meant the regular season. Like their regular season performance was really bad, and then they stepped up in the playoffs again, like they did in the previous season. Like made their way to a reasonable spot, qualified for what was called the Premier Series Grand Finals, and then made it all the way to literally the Grand Finals of the Grand Finals, where they took 2 maps off Miraculous Youngster. So they're clearly a team that can show up when the pressure's on, which is pretty interesting to have a team that's consistently doing that in the region. And the Miracle Team 1 as well made it.
I think
so
the
three
Chinese
good
region,
APAC.
the Chinese region as a whole is we underestimate them now because we've only got a lot. Like the only things we've been gathering from them, they don't really step out of their own scene much, tournament-wise. But in other games, the Chinese scene, what they lack in sort of, I guess, elegance. I need to be very careful the way I put this. what they lack in elegance, they make up for in, I guess, hard work. Grit and determination, because their scene is so massive because obviously the country's so huge that like the good players eventually just filter through, and the good compositions and the stuff that works, and you do end up with some like incredible teams in other games. I'm referring back to like games like Dota and stuff. Woo, yeah, let's go. But like straight up, I have a feeling that in Overwatch in particular, it's going to be, if not now, this will be a good test and a good showing to see where China is. But within the next year or so, they'll definitely be a contender for maybe not Korea, but they'll be one of those scenes that is probably competing with the West in a lot of ways in these titles.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think people are really going to have a surprise at APAC because I think they're going to walk away with the win. I think they might even lock it out. It might be 2 Chinese teams in the grand finals. I think that'll be a little bit difficult to make it past MVP space and maybe Africa Freaks if they get their shit together. Like maybe Flash Wolves as well perform slightly better at that. But honestly, there's a pretty decent chance that that's 2 Chinese teams in the finals. And the last time any Chinese teams played at LAN was with another region was APAC, because they've been playing within their own region, and they got mega ultra dumpster dunked when they went to APAC. They got beaten by like the old NRG team, with Seagull just popping off on May and stuff.
Oh, what a shame! Oh no.
And they in turn dunked on the Japanese. So the hierarchy was bad.
Let's move on rapidly because I wanna finish this up. But any final thoughts on the APAC invites, or we briefly rushed over them when we were talking about Miraculous Youngsters? But any thoughts?
I think honestly, I think Vision are gonna struggle big time. You've got some really good Chinese teams showing up here. AF Blue is going to be there. Flash Wolves are there. I think this might be the APEC where we start to see China start to really perform. LTD is not going to be there, interestingly, and Fiji is instead. But I mean, again, we saw that Chinese World Cup team perform really well. If they're not even invited to this event, that should say a heck of a lot. So, yeah, it might be time for the bamboo curtain to be drawn back.
I think it's a little bit unfortunate that a top Korean team or a top Western team isn't actually attending, because Envision really, if you were going to pick your champion from the West, Envision, it's those 2 things don't really go together, right? And then the Koreans have got MVP space and Africa Freaks, despite the fact that just kind of close by in Taiwan, Ardiant has been dunking on everybody over there. So it literally smashed both of the teams that have been sent from OPC. So the invites are a little bit strange. It kind of stacks the field a bit more towards China, apparently unintentionally, but they're still going to have a good performance. I think it should still be an interesting tournament.
Yeah, definitely. And we get to gauge how the Western Tier 2, the top of the Western Tier 2 scene, I would say, stacks up against all of China. So.
All right. Well, Envision, we briefly mentioned them. Numlock is not going to be playing with them for APAC. Instead, they're going to be running a player whose name I'm going to struggle to pronounce now, even though it's not even Korean. Chain.
Wow, you nailed it in one.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank God, because last time I called it Cheyenne, and I was immediately like, for some reason, I thought it was pronounced the same way as like the dog in Fallout New Vegas. So it's not Chain.
Okay, I don't know anything about this guy. I know nothing about Chain.
Even
He played,
does.
he
Neither
played for You Guys Get Paid, and then he played for Fnatic, but didn't actually play in any games for them. I think he's just like, I mean, he's all right. I don't know what to say.
I didn't hear.
We'll find out, won't we? I guess. But
yeah. Is he the guy that replaced the fated Harry Butcher
when you
guys got paid?
Yeah.
Wow, this guy must be a legend if he was good enough to replace Harry_Butcher. That guy was a madman. When they released some of the VODs with their comms, that guy was so funny. He was just like, he sounded like a UK guy from Leeds that was always off his head on Ket, but just would play Overwatch anyway. So he was just like, I don't know, like he'd call it, he was going in and he was like super hyped, and then he'd die and he'd be like, oh, it was fantastic. Like, he wasn't even that bad, he was just hilarious to listen to. Just, I can't imagine playing on a team with him, because he would just like, I would stop concentrating on my own play and just be like listening to him the whole time. You're a glorious human being.
Let's listen to, and by listen I mean me. I don't know where I'm going with this sentence. Rogue.
You can tell this is the last topic.
I've lost the plot. I've lost the plot, honestly.
You might talk where I thought you were going. I surely hope not.
Rogue have disbanded.
Yes.
Let's talk about
Disbanded? That's not a word, Bren. That's not a word, mate.
This is the classic Brenism per episode.
You can't just make up words. He's gone.
Disbanded? Alright, let's talk about it anyway.
Rogue
Now that he's fucking gone. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not surprised though. I guess we could talk about the speculations of them going over to the some of them going to this LA team. Apparently, I saw that on Reddit. Soon and
Nonco.
So at least they're not getting completely fisted, because I had a feeling that this team, like, obviously these guys were not the best networkers amongst the community. They were not known for networking at all.
I don't think that this is the entire story, though. I think that I can't. I feel like everybody's blindly trusting the Rogue story, saying, yeah, we had all the money, we had that 14th spot locked up, and then all of a sudden Blizzard said no. Like, that can't
be.
That
sounds reasonable.
Yeah, so I heard that Blizzard, one of the players said to me that Blizzard chose Comcast over them because billionaires, apparently. I'm like, what the fuck, man? You got Steve Aoki behind you. What were you talking about? So I can't verify that at all.
As from what I've heard, I don't think that Rogue has been entirely truthful about everything, and I think that's part of the reason that people are getting fucked over. So
the players are blaming Rogue. None of the players are blaming their org at all.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. It's very easy to scapegoat Blizzard. I know a lot of people have done it all the time, right? But I think that there's more going on here, and to see like a talent like AKM, like all the a bunch of Koreans were calling him one of the best hitscan players they've ever played. To see somebody like that getting lost because, I mean, it's not because of networking, dude. Like, there's more to it.
But also, the weird thing about a lot of the Rogue players is that they have such small hero pools that they're so amazing at that you have to build a roster almost around them, or you have to completely retool your roster to fit them in, that it's hard to fit them in so late on. So, like, I can definitely see them being left out and it being a reasonable option for teams, because if you bring in AKM, dude doesn't play Tracer, but he's like really good at hitscan, doesn't also play Genji, doesn't play like the two heroes that have probably been the most in the DPS meta throughout the entirety of Overwatch, and then but plays like Soldier really well, plays Reaper really well, his McCree's insane, like Widowmaker's fantastic, you know, he plays all of these heroes to a super high level, and then you've got like exactly the same for Nox, who doesn't play that much Reinhardt, exactly the same for Soon, who plays almost all Tracer and has only just started branching out to like Doomfist, Junkrat, played Reaper before.
He's played Genji before as well. Look, all I'll say is that 50k for one of the best hit scans in the world, I don't think that's too far of an ask.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not an argument for why someone picked him up now. It's like an argument for why don't they pick him up a day before the deadline. Right? It's just like you just wait until the end.
I like, without giving too much away, speaking to AKM, he generally felt like he was being overlooked to a great degree by a lot of these rosters. It wasn't as if he felt like that he deserved a fucking spot on the best team, but he was I guess, struggling to sort of grasp the fact that he was just not really being approached. He was just not really, in, I guess everyone was pursuing him. So I do think that, like, he has reached out to teams and vice versa. And I think there's opportunities there for him, but he was not in a good way. He was generally disappointed with sort of how it all worked out. And wherever you want to point fingers, it is a shame to see these players that give up so much, and then to be like, as a gamer, you live a life of uncertainty as it is, right? Like, are you going to make it? Are you going to get dropped? Are you going to win the tournament? Are your teammates going to turn on you one day? So it's a tough life for players. And I think it's so funny when people say, "Oh, your life's so easy. You play video games for a living." It's such a hard job, not just because of the practice regime or the pressure, but it's the uncertainty and the lack of security. So I feel for a lot of these players, I wish we could all just be there, up on the balcony of Overwatch League with all the guys drinking, whiskey and smoking cigars. But it doesn't work that way, and for some very good players are going to slip through the cracks.
But also, even if you do slip through the cracks, if you manage to make fantastic rosters for Contenders Season 2 with whatever organizations... Because listen, from the organization standpoint, if you can manage to sign players like AKM and they want to play in Contenders and don't want to join some bottom feeder Overwatch League team for 50k a year, if they think a little longer term perhaps and want to sign for a Contenders team or something, and you are then in a position to sell them on whenever the next transfer window happens, I think that's a financially sound system to build a team around. If you manage to make a core that's good and then demonstrate your prowess and you're actually like a really good Contenders team as well, you're going to be able to beat some lower level OWL teams in all likelihood, even with the lack of available free agents on the market. And then in the off season, you can prove that. You can potentially expand in Season 2, sell the slot, sell individual players. I think the system as it exists currently still kind of makes sense for these players to stick around.
And we know they're going to be expanding down the road, whether it's Season 2, Season 3. So, like, they should be in a fine position, I would say. It's just immediately it looks very rough.
Good points, lads. Good talk. Good talk. I think that concludes it. Any final points that you guys have just realised halfway through the podcast that we need to cover? But I think we've done a decent job.
No, I'd actually just like to hear everybody's favourite Brenism, because I feel like I stopped writing them down at some point, and now I've lost track of which were the best.
Oh, my
what
favorite.
what was his woodwork one?
Yeah, they're safe now. They're out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I love that one because it's like he's getting out of the forest and out of the woodwork mixed up. That's one of my favorites.
That was classic.
Related. I don't know why it's so confusing.
I do like the
Forests
one where he...
have wood, and I'm talking about woodwork.
I like the one where he asks the wrong player about why they played bad.
I had a valid reason for this, and Harsha knows it, but he's bringing it up anyway. He just wants to fucking... Oh, God. It was because I couldn't... Right, to put it simply, I couldn't see... From where I was standing to walk onto the stage, I couldn't actually watch the game, and I couldn't see the players, but I knew they played Bastion. That's it. That's the reasoning. Just going to put it like that. It was my fault. I'm a fucking idiot. Okay? Whatever. It happened. Right. I'm glad I did it.
Bren, what's your favourite Brenism? Or what was the one that blew your mind the most? Was there anywhere you said it and you were like, I've been saying that since I was 2 years old? What the hell?
I can't remember.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you haven't actually registered some of them in your brain and you'll keep coming out with them.
He has some that he just doesn't know are Brenisms yet.
I don't know their Brenisms yet because nobody's corrected me on it.
Yeah,
I
it's
imagine
fantastic.
now people are going to be calling me out on this shit.
Well, we do call you out on it. I do think like the UK invading Korea was a pretty solid one. That's like a good
well,
thing.
I don't actually think we invaded Korea. I just said we've invaded so many countries that it could be a possibility. I never made that claim, bitch. I never said the UK invaded Korea and we were the overlords of their country, so it's fine. We got 6 Koreans for the London Overwatch League team. That's not the point I was making.
You see where the confusion arises.
And I said disbanded, and you had that's another Brenism. That's a word.
It's not a word, actually. It's an amalgamation of sounds. It's not a word.
Google it, you fucking
Okay,
idiot.
I'm Googling it. Disbanded. Did you mean disbanded?
That's what I meant. That's disbanded. Is disbanded.
There's only one that's correct.
Disbanded this podcast. Jesus.
There we go.
Yeah, that'll do it. Let's finish it up, lads. Thanks for watching, gang. If you watched it to this point, I have no clue why, but we've had special guests.
Probably.
Yeah, Mitch, Uber shouts, Leslie. He's been a fantastic guest. Always a pleasure. And of course, the regulars as well, Mr. Harsha and Mr. Sideshow. I've been Bren. I'm sure the social media links are in the description, but we're going to end it here. Thanks for watching. Until next time.